All right. Mic check 1 2 1 2. If anyone can hear me in the chat, just push 1 for as a confirmation. We got 2 people watching, probably including myself. Hostile Adept, what's going on? If you can hear me, just push 1 in the chat. Let me turn my mic up. All right, thanks for the confirmation. Welcome back to the Black Brain Trust. This is open chat number 24. Please hit the like button as you come in, share the video if possible, and hit that notification bell so you get all the updates from the Black Brain Trust. Mella, welcome to the live stream. Hostile Adept, what's going on? There's a link in the chat if you want to join the panel. Just click on the link. When you're in the waiting room, raise your hand so that we can acknowledge you and we can bring you onto the panel. And just as a follow-up, we had a great live stream last night. Got a lot of feedback on that, so people were definitely feeling it. And what I'll say to that is this: some people were saying that we're wasting a lot of time responding to people who don't have any sort of credibility within these discussions. And I think it's important that we have these discussions because and we respond to them, because what's happening here is that people are making all these comments either about us or about the sort of demographic that we represent, and they're using our existence as a talking point in a way to pivot away from and deflect from their inadequacies. And so they blame these upwardly mobile Black males as the problem, but at the same time not allowing you to scrutinize what they do. You know, they're having these 8-hour live streams about nothing, no substance, and pretending as if you know, it's almost as if the brother who sits in Duke University is the problem. You know, they're you know, the lame that they're talking about was the problem. So we felt like we needed to respond to that. We had been contemplating on whether or not we should, and we did. And it turns out that it was actually very successful response. I didn't think that we were going to go that long. I thought that you know, we would have an hour-long discussion and then be done with it. But it seems to me that I woke up this morning to see them responding to our live stream, and then when I, you know, when I went to try to go Engage, they had already put it on private, so they took it down. And that seems to be typical now, right? You bump your gums, you talk a lot of stuff, and then next thing you know, there's no way to respond to it because they don't threw the rock and hid their hands. So we're not going to take down these live streams. We're going to keep them up as a point of reference. And if those people feel like they have something to say, then come back and we can fire up another live stream. We can have the debate. So that's how that goes. But tonight is Rethinking 2053, and based on it with the live stream from this, that's actually still going right now over there. Based on the conversations that's happened over there, I don't know if they can make it to 2053. I don't know. Don't think they're going to make it. I think what will eventually happen is that most of these people who claim to be pro-Black will eventually get to a point of starvation. You can go roughly 3 days, 72 hours without food before you really start to come down. Your motorization skills start to break down. You probably go a week or a couple weeks without water, but going without food. And the reason why I bring up food is because the industries that they occupy right now will be replaced with automation by 2022, maybe even sooner. We see that we covered McDonald's and their artificial intelligence for the drive-through. We covered several dozen articles about Lyft and Uber, pushing for autonomous vehicles by 2025, 2028. A variety of services, customer service being replaced with artificial intelligence. So you have to ask yourself, where do these people stand? Where are they going to go? We covered an article about 2 weeks ago about a woman in Atlanta with 3 or 4 kids, and she did not receive federal assistance. What they actually did was basically left her out there to fend for herself. She was paying market rent with a very low-paying job, and she had kids to feed as well. And a lot of the houses that she was going to were actually dilapidated. They really wasn't fit for living, and she had multiple evictions on her record. And why does this matter? Because that's the future happening right now. You don't have to wait to 2053 to see something like this happen. 2053 will be that crossing point of fourth industrialized maturation, and whether or not it will determine whether or not your community actually fits into this whole entire thing. And based on the conversations I'm hearing today with certain people in their live streams, I don't think that they're going to make it to 2053. Originally, we predicted 2053 as a trajectory based on the time it takes for a community or even a society to actually embrace the industrialization. If you look at slavery ended in 1865, and from 1865 up to the 1890s, you had Black Wall Street. So institutional building took place, industrialization was taking place, and then the first Black Wall Street started showing up in the 1890s. So roughly about 30 to 35 years was the timeline for, you know, a community or even society to make that sort of transition. And this happened in a very analog era, right? There was no cell phones or smartphones or computers or anything like that. I mean, you just had the landline develop, you know, and you know, the railways being developed. So transportation was relatively new. There were no planes back then. There were no helicopters. You know, you had ferries and things like that, but you did not have the mass scale rollout of transportation. So to see Black people come from a dilapidated state of slavery into Black Wall Street is relevant to the trajectory of what we thought would happen with the fourth industrialized revolution from 2020 up until 2053. We thought that was a pretty liberal perspective to have, because 30 to 35 years is roughly that time, right? 2020, 2030, 2040, 2050. So you have about 30 years to really to really think this out. And what's happening here is that the discussions that I'm seeing being taking place in the manosphere on Black YouTube almost revolves around this sort of educated lame. The lame being an unattractive. He lacks charisma. He's not sexually. He's not select, so to speak. He has all the resources and he has all the check boxes, but just doesn't fit the profile of what they would consider to be a person to reproduce offspring with, which is fine. But what happens when you actually have to have a conversation about the future? Because the same people who don't consider him to be select or whatever term they want to use, you still have to figure out what you're going to do for 2053, or else you'll be left behind. But I'm starting to think that 2053 is a no-go. Most of the people who are making these comments and hanging in these live streams for 8 hours, they themselves have children that they don't even have a plan for. We know, based on the article that we read, I think Friday, on economics, that Black people who are least likely to have a savings account, which is why you have a lot of checks cash and Western Unions and paydays and all these predatory institutions in their neighborhoods. So if you can't balance a checkbook or even maintain a checking account at any bank, you probably don't have a savings either. If you don't have a savings, what are you going to hand down? You don't have a checking account, you don't have a savings account, you probably don't have a major asset such as a house. So if you don't have all of these pieces in place to hand off 30 years from now, what are you going to, I don't think you'll make it to 2053. I think the window of opportunity for engaging a discussion about fourth industrialized emerging markets is almost too far-fetched now. So we're starting to walk this back. We're starting to rethink, is this even viable? And if it's not viable, then what? There's a link in the chat for those who want to join the panel. Just hit the link and then you'll be in the waiting room. And when you're in the waiting room, raise your hand so that we can acknowledge you. So that in order for you to be advanced to the panel. Interestingly enough, they're more concerned about who has swag and who doesn't have swag. Quote unquote, this educated Pookie. He's so educated. Where's the institutions? Where's the infrastructure? See, when you start having these deeper conversations, they have a hard time acknowledging acknowledging the future. See, they live for the short term, but not the long term. And people laughed at us and they said, yeah, you know, you guys talking about space exploration, that's BS. Really? You just saw India put their lunar lander on the moon. Whether or not it's functional is irrelevant. They actually did it. And they did it at 1/10 of the cost of the United States government with NASA. Link is in the chat. So that's what's been going on all day. You know, these live streams being fired off, man. Who's a lame, who's not. They love to romanticize these sort of you know, according to them, he's an educated Pookie. What makes him educated? Who granted him his accreditation? I don't know. You know, who validates that? Who verified that? Let's put his education under peer review, and let's acknowledge it. Let's challenge it. And that's what we did yesterday with their talking points. We took their talking points one by one, and we dismantled every single one of them. But now they come back again, and it's like they don't know how to take an L. So they come back and they're talking about cooking more people, and they're like, cook who? You're vegan. You can't cook. Who are you gonna cook? Not with those talking points. Those are weak talking points. Those are talking points that, you know, you can say that in your little live streams in your channels, but you would never be able to get that off over here. Barrowborn says, simple, their strategy is to steal the future from those who prepared for it. Absolutely. Agree with you 100%. But you know, what's funny is that millennials blame boomers, and they say the boomers didn't prepare anything for us. It's their fault. This, and that. Okay, fine. But what are you going to do when the Zennials get older? When the Zennials turn 30, 35, they're going to be blaming the Gen Xers, and they're going to say you didn't do anything.
Hey, Mike. That's a hell of a point. I say that all the time. I was going in on Jason Black with respect to that. He was on one of his live streams. He was going in on the boomers, and I'm like, all right. I said, in just a little less than 10 years, it's all gonna drop on your lap. You think that it's all the millennials' fault? And let me just say this: millennials, you know, I mean, not the millennials, excuse me, the boomers' fault. You know, when we were coming up, when I was coming out of school and all that, I don't care if you just had a degree. I don't care if you got a degree in fine arts. I don't care if you got a degree in basket weaving. If you just had a degree, 128 credits, and you declared a major, you got a degree and a minor, you got a degree, and you know, you basically, could come out and pretty much get a job, pretty much, doing a lot of things, doing pretty much anything. You pretty much did. I mean, when I first came out of school, the economy was a little shaky, but things kind of kicked up, and if you had a degree, you could easily pretty much get a job. When the millennials came out of school, that dynamic had changed. It had changed a lot. So some of the college thing had changed, and now you had to be a little bit more focused. We didn't really know, so we couldn't really properly guide them all the way. This is just a change that happened. So now they had to adjust. But they didn't want to blame everybody because they didn't have the silver spoon kind of working with them. And looking at the crying of the millennials and how they're, you have some millennials who are doing business. So I'm not going to sit here and paint a broad brush across all the millennials. I'm not going to say that. But you have a lot then who started, who've been doing a lot of crying. And I'm looking at these Zers coming up, man, and they're looking at a lot of these guys like they're soft, like Twinkie fellas. And the beat downs that they're going to get is going to be legendary. Some of these guys, I think, will get their ass beat. I hate to say it like that, but I think some of that's coming down because these Zers are coming up a little harsher. They're coming up real wise. They're coming up very, a lot of them are coming up very practical minded. And they're seeing a lot of things. There's a lot of information coming at them. They're looking at things for what they are. And they're going to judge many millennials harshly. And for what, I remember there was an old, BGS played this, but I had heard this one before. The tale of the two letters. I don't know if you heard that story.
You don't never cry in the morning for me.
Who's that, man? Who's that coming in there, man? All loud.
Sorry about that. Hey guys, this is Michael Coleman. How you doing?
Yeah, Mike. Yeah. I would say the tale of two letters. I was just gonna say, how they were talking about, how the Russian premier, he wrote, when he got knocked out of office, he wrote a letter, warning, the other premier that was coming in, about what could happen, and and if things go wrong, tell the next generation to blame it all on him. And then, when another problem came up, you got to sit down and write another letter to say, hey, listen, now you got to take the blame. And that's what's coming, and it's coming up fast. So yeah, so the millennials, in my view, are going to, they, I think the oldest one's about 35 now or so. And yeah, they
You said the millennials or the boomers?
The millennials. The older millennials will come up there around 35. I think the oldest are around 35 or 36, I would think. Right?
35 is the cutoff.
Yeah, 35. A lot of them are 35 years old now. So they're coming up. Those about the oldest millennials, and some of them starting to have kids, and it's going to be live on them because a lot of them haven't done much. Some have, but a lot are just kind of, you have the Zuckermans and the Zuckerbergs and a few others, but you got a lot that are laying up, and I don't know, it's not going to be pretty. You know what I mean? So, we all have to, we're all going to have to look at this. My brother.
I've been listening to you guys for about a year.
Really?
About a year. So it's about a year and a half, right?
Right.
I've taken what y'all have said here, and it will be implemented next year for my son. Y'all hear me on BGS Pen all the time. This is the shit that I be talking about right here, what Mike is bringing up right now. It ain't like the information ain't here. It ain't like you can't compete. It ain't like you can't sit down and get the free resources. This is what I was, BGS had a video talking about Sophie's letter, right? And I brought up this argument, which was, which one of your children are you going to put all your resources behind if you've got multiple children, right? And you only can pick one to go to the new world, or meaning to compete on in the next stage of whatever, right? Oh man, I couldn't leave my kids behind. You ain't gonna you can't take everybody, man. You might not have a choice, especially if you're not applying this stuff now or having, all you do is go to the I always drop y'all's name, go to Black Brain Trust. Hey man, I got a kid who might be interested in this. What do I need to do? I got Khan Academy out of here from y'all. We're doing that this past summer with my son.
Khan Academy, and I'm gonna tell you another one, Chegs. Go to that, CHEGS, go to that, chegs.com, just for also it's a pay for site. You got to put a little bit of money into it.
That's fine.
But it'll help you solve some problems and stuff like that you need. They have online tutors right there, which is good too. And there are those who are in the chat and who were aware of it. I use it all the time. I was actually using it earlier today with some of the kids that we're tutoring today. We were doing we were adding, dividing, and multiplying logarithms. So we were getting involved in that. But how to solve those problems are very good. You have a tutor who will help you with that. So it's really good stuff. A lot of really good tools. And like I said, Khan Academy is crazy, man. Crazy.
Yeah, well,
that's crazy. That's great stuff.
And I got that from you guys, man.
Yeah.
And if people want, here's my thing where people have been saying, man, you've been sounding a little bit more black pill lately. I was like, no, I've just been accepting what people's choice that they have already made. You follow me? I can't pick up when chaos starts happening in a room. I can't.
Chaos reigns or chaos?
No, chaos. I'm just saying, like, when chaos starts happening, I can't pick up no fat person and go. I can pick up someone who's in health, and someone in shape, prep, ready to go. You know what I'm saying? That might be ready to go. We ain't gonna be able to save everybody, man. It's scary to think that all these free resources are at your feet, and people are more concerned about Pookie and Ray Ray shit. Oh, I outsmarted a smart dude. So what? You're still broke. So what? Ooh, you got a point. What you do? You're still broke, and if this economy collapse tomorrow, how you gonna feed your family? Or more importantly, if this economy collapse tomorrow, how you gonna move your family out of this country if you needed to?
You know what, Mike? The articles that we covered displays that African Americans or ADOS do not have enough savings available, at least $1,000 bare minimum, to cover any sort of expenses, whether they're medical expenses or a family emergency. They just don't have it. So the article
$400.
Yep. That last live stream y'all did about I was peeping out, man. I couldn't even get 30 minutes. I listened to it for about 30 minutes and I couldn't no more.
Yeah. Well,
because I was looking at the articles that y'all have posted, and I'm seeing them writing on the wall like you are, which is there ain't no helping them, man.
No. And see,
there's no helping them, and on top of that, if I stop what I'm doing to help you, I might get swept up under with you, which is the crazy part. You know what I mean?
Well, Gen Xers is the last generation to have a pension. After Gen Xers, millennials and zennials, there is no such thing as a pension for them. That's all out the window. Those sort of careers and those sort of opportunities are long gone. So not having a 401k, not having an IRA, not having a rainy day fund, there's nothing there. Nothing is coming. And the zennials don't know this. The zennials don't know that there is nothing coming from the Gen Xers, nothing from these educated pookies that claim to be educated. They have left nothing behind for these people. And the very same arguments that Gen Xers had for boomers, the zennials are going to have it for the Gen Xers too.
Oh no!
What they do got is they outsmarted one dude on the weekend in October or September 2019. They got 1 point. That's all the fuck you got. You have no way to transfer wealth. Like even I was talking with my son because Nagona brought up. I think.
Well, if you're in the military with an asterisk, if you're in the military, if you serve military, then you can pass on those benefits.
Yeah, I was talking to my son about 2 months ago. I think Nagona had brought up blockchain, or one of you guys brought up blockchain as an introductory. So I went and talked to my son, and he was like, "I ain't never heard of it." I said, "I heard a little bit about it." I said, "But let's look into it. See what it's about. It's a starting out job making $90K a year." I was like,
yeah.
You know what I mean? And then I told him about the guy you were talking about recruiting. You did. If you could get this one job filled, it's like $250,000. And my son's like, "Are you serious?" I was like, "No."
Still having, it's still an outstanding rec. I only had one person interview for it right now. They didn't have the skills. You have guys that are on the job that are interviewing for this right now, who are interviewing people, and they don't have a tremendous handle on the technology themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So the person you're bringing in is going to have to teach them who you're hiring as well. That's how butter laid this game is. You're walking in, writing tickets, fam. That's where we're at with this. All right. I don't know how to express that more to people. That's where we are at. And I know people sitting back here, well, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, I'm doing, well, if you get this, you're cooking with real gas. So that's kind of where we're at. And we're talking about that here. I don't hear that being talked about in any other places. Really, I just don't. But anyway.
No, that is what I wanted to come on and tell Mike, and just the people in this space. You're doing the right thing, man.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
You're doing the right. You're doing the right thing. When it's time to cut tail and go, it's time to cut tail and go. Like I said, I mean, I enjoy YouTube. I enjoy the banter. I enjoy getting this knowledge you guys are doing, and and especially with being busy with what I have to do. And there's guys out here who are willing to even, take the time and do this shit, because y'all don't have to. That's why I always tip my hat to you and BGS, man, because y'all don't have to be doing this. You know what I'm saying? But the fact that you're doing it, sharing this knowledge, sharing this information, we are being up to date and relevant as any other demographic group on this planet right now with what's going on in the world.
Yeah.
And the fact that this space exists with such the small numbers lets me know that we are only 3%. African Americans are 3% of the world Black population.
Yep.
Trust me, the genetics will be all right.
Mm-hmm.
You follow me? But I am afraid, as what you're saying, that it might be fear that has overtaken them, that they may not be, the fear of not learning something new,
Mm-hmm.
changing their environment so they can adapt themselves. I just saw this white kid. He did a video. I don't know if y'all watch a guy named This Ace is Live.
No.
He has a traveling channel, and he just interviewed a white kid about a month ago, where he's over in Vietnam teaching English.
Wow.
He's making like $24, $25 an hour. He either just go get a certificate for like 3 months. You go over there and he's teaching English for like 24, 25 bucks an hour. And the cost of living over there, he said maybe he'll spend about $800, maybe $1,000.
That's what we were talking about last night or Friday.
And I'm like, dude, yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
You have to understand, $50,000 a year in these places, 50 grand.
That's what I'm saying.
50 grand, you're living like a rock star. You've got servants in your house. You've got somebody driving you every place. You have more money in your pocket than you could spend. You're basically a millionaire for 50 grand. I'll just say that. Mike, go ahead.
Sorry, and that's what go ahead, Mike. I'm sorry. Good.
No, I was just gonna say that we talked about that Friday. Planning your retirement. Black people can retire at 45 if they stack their bread right, if they got their mind right. So you're not gonna retire here with no savings. I don't know what these people on these other channels are teaching them, but you are not going to retire here on no savings. We don't even know if Social Security is going to be around by 2060 or 2065. That could be gone by then. You don't know what this government may do.
I'm gonna say this, and then I gotta get bounced out, guys. Yep. I'm probably gonna criticize y'all the exact same way I criticize BGS. Okay. I love everything you do. The only criticism I think y'all have got is your timelines are wrong, and that's just in my opinion. Okay. Mm-hmm. You are correct, Mike. They're not ready. It ain't no 2050. It's 2025. Me, I think it's in 3 years. We're gonna see a drastic change.
What do you see happening in 2025?
I see this recession giving them the excuse they need to automate. They want to do it anyways, and they're already rapidly doing it, but they needed an excuse to fully implement it. And I think this recession to give it to them.
Well, World Economic Forum. Go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go ahead. Go ahead. What's your point?
No, I was just going to say that World Economic Forum this past few weeks said by 2022, you'll have rapid scale, upscale, and automation.
Yes,
Okay,
I believe it.
so you may have, I mean, those people who, those Black people who will be disaffected by the upscaling of automation. There'll be some form of unemployment benefits for now. We saw in 2008 where Obama had to extend it out past 6 months to a year, and after a year, up to 5 years or something like that. At some point, I know here in Massachusetts, they started reducing, or they were having decisions about reducing the DTA, the Department of Transitional Assistance, that the ones who actually dole out the cash to the people.
Yep.
Taking it from
You know,
$20, you can't withdraw more than $20 a day down to $10 a day. They're talking about doing that, implementing that, so that you can't go down to CVS or some other store like a liquor store and buy alcohol and stuff like that, because that's what they're trying to reduce. So if they're talking about hitting you in the wallet there, after $10, it's going to be nothing. You're just not going to get anything.
that was my point with the excuse, right? So if you implement all the technology right now, you'll have mass panic. But if you implement the technology when there's so-called there's no jobs, right, and people are getting laid off left and right, but for some reason the building is still on and it's still running. You get what I'm saying? As a person who would have it, like if you guys had your own business and you got rid of somebody, but you could bring in this system that will pay itself off in 5 years, but it can work 24 hours a day. It may be a huge expense for you right now, but fuck it. I don't have to pay no more medical bills. I don't have to be worried about liability, someone suing me. I mean, it's as a person who would have be a business owner, AI is an amazing thing.
Well, a lot of Black people smoke cigarettes, man. Up in New York, a pack of Newports is like $20 or something like that, $18.
Yeah, man, I saw a guy buying 2 packs of cigarettes. I was in the city the other day. I was going to tell you about anybody buying cigarettes, but I was in this was last week. I was grabbing something quick to eat, and I saw somebody at this deli buying 2 packs of cigarettes. $19, 18, $19. I looked at this dude. I said, "You are stone cold crazy to be smoking these things that have no benefit to your body at all, and they are roasting your pockets." I mean, I don't care. I don't care. I don't care if you're a millionaire. I don't care. $20 for 2 packs. It makes some sense out of that for me, please.
Yeah, and it's crazy how the expenses that we spend, as opposed to if you would expat, just take y'all's advice, grab a new degree, 2 years. 2 years, sitting your ass down, banging it out real quick, getting some kind of skill set, and then taking your ass and being a nomad and finding an internet connection. Man,
that's all you need.
And you're living like I said, that dude is teaching fucking English. I failed English class. Trust me.
Are you bilingual?
No, I'm not bilingual at all. But I'm just saying, the dude that did the interview said he's not bilingual. He's like, I think he had a degree in math. I think it was, or something like that, or it may be English. I can't remember. But he was like, yeah, he says they just want me to teach English. He says they give you the certificate you get teaches you how they want you to teach the language, and then you'll buy the books, and then you'll teach the course according to the books. Basically like old school teachers. And I'm like, dude, you get paid $24, $25 an hour to just talk. I failed English class, dude. Let's sign me up. You know what I'm saying? So,
but even that can be automated. Even that can be automated with today's technology. You can
I
say
agree,
something
but
in English and then translate it into Vietnamese, and then they actually get it, right? So
no, what I'm saying is it's exercising the muscle to take advantage of opportunities to keep adapting and evolving yourself. Right. So if you hop on an opportunity like this, it might only be good for 2 or 3 years. And then you keep looking for something new. You do stuff like the going is saying. Look on these job sites or tap in and going and be like, hey man, what's the new next thing job hunting that they're looking for? Blockchain, right? I don't have a blockchain, but I can go over there, bust my ass for 2 years, teaching English, pay my bills down, stack my bread, and then boom, move into a new career path. Right? It's being able to stay ahead of the wave. This tsunami that's coming is going to wipe out everything.
Mm-hmm.
And that's y'all remember that scene in Game of Thrones when the zombies attacked?
Okay.
I don't watch the show, so I
Okay,
apologize.
in Game of Thrones, it was right before the zombies did the big invasion. And if you
Okay.
watch that, that to me reminded me of the automation. It's overwhelming.
I would think automation is going to come in there kind of like them dragons they had up in there, tearing everybody out the frame.
It just might too. I mean, because there's no hiding it now. I mean, once one dude figures
Destroy.
out, like Mike said, once you automate a McDonald's, and then I got Grubhub bringing me my food right after. I mean, after that, this is gonna be off the chain. I mean, Amazon already kicking out their warehouse employees to push them into driving so they can automate their warehouses.
Well, the warehouses are already automated. That's why they
That's
bought
what I'm saying.
Kiva. They bought Kiva
Yeah.
Systems, which is a robotic one of the most advanced robotic companies in the country here in Massachusetts. They bought them whole and call it Amazon Robotics now.
Oh, okay. Because everybody kept asking me, "Why does AI scare you?" And I said, "AI doesn't scare me. It's the robotics that scares me."
Right.
And they just released that video with Boston Dynamics, 2 commercials. I said, "You see that dude do a backflip, do a handstand? If that fucker can do that, it can hand you a cup of coffee. It can bring you your package. They don't need you no more." That's scary.
Yeah, I mean, they had a whole article out. It was in the Guardian, because I look at the Guardian a lot, where they were just showing all of the jobs that were probably going to get lost to automation, and what else, and what jobs where they wouldn't get lost. And to have a successful kind of society and economy and so forth, you have to constantly train people, and America's not doing that. That's where we're going to fall behind.
You're
Germany,
giving everybody a choice in what they want to do, as opposed to these authoritarian companies, which are making people go learn some new shit.
I mean, if you go to Germany and so forth, they have training programs to consistently upgrade people's skills so they stay abreast of new emerging technologies that are coming in, and people can train and be prepared to take those types of jobs.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's what we have to do. We have to keep aware. I think here, one thing you have to brain trust. Well, at least, there's entertainment and so forth. I don't mind the entertainment aspect of YouTube and all that. I have no problem with it. Let people entertain each other. People want to be entertained. So I'm with all that. I can't lie, I am. But I also believe that, we should have information that's actionable, which people can act on and hear, listen, and move forward. We should be supplying that as well.
Yeah, and we should not be having conversations about 23-year-olds, being marrying single mothers as a lifestyle, man, and taking on someone else's offspring.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, that's what I told my son. He's 13 years old. Mm-hmm. He's coming to be living with me next year. He'll be 14, and we're implementing the homeschool plan that you guys talked about. Mm-hmm. Cramming his ass full of math and programming up front before he graduates high school. That boy should damn almost have a college degree by the time he graduates high school.
Right? If you do this thing right, you will do better than most of these schools, and that's what a lot of Black parents. One thing I have to say about some of these real forward-thinking Black parents, and there are a lot of them out here, contrary to what a lot of people might want to say, they are homeschooling their kids to a razor sharp point. Yes. And that is, I mean, that is something that we have to do.
Like I said, I think Mike, y'all did a thing with BGS about a year and a half ago, and Mike came on to the BGS panel, and they did a session, and that's what sparked the inspiration. And I appreciate you guys for it. I mean, I'm forever grateful that you guys are doing it, because I wouldn't have even been thinking about it. It wasn't even on my radar.
Yeah, hey, no problem, dude. That's exactly, this is how I came up during undergrad and even before undergrad, man. These are the sort of things that we used to do. And that's how I got to where I'm at. And, if you wanted to do this with non-Black people, man, they're going to charge you $2,500, $3,000, $5,000. You want to go to DEF CON? You want to go to Black Hat? You want to go to these types of events? Expect to pay 10 grand.
No, exactly. Yep. My son was with me this summer, so he calls me up. After he goes back to his mom's house. He says, "Dad, you were right." I said, "What do you mean?" He said that there's this kid in my class, and he's already learning programming language too.
Mhm.
I said, a white kid? He said, yeah. I said, that's your competition right there in the future. He said, yeah, but I didn't. You were right. His dad's already got him started early.
Mhm.
I says, I know, son. I said, the only thing I regret is not knowing this 2 years ago, because that's when I really would have started you.
Hey, how did you get into your career? I think you're in the healthcare industry, right?
Yeah, pediatric nurse, man. Yeah, just honestly, I actually went for IT, and IT's just not. It ain't for me. You get what I'm
Really?
saying? Yeah, it's just not for me. But I was always good at making people laugh, and when they're sick. So that's when I swapped careers and went over and started doing healthcare.
So did you
Um,
graduate with a background in MIS or something?
no, no, honestly, I had there's a project that I've been working on, which got me back into like tech stuff. And
Okay.
so it was basically looking at the nursing field and seeing the huge gap of they're always talking about we need to bring in technology, and I'm like, no, you need to bring in emerging, cool, efficient, and productive technology like this automation shit,
Mhm.
which it will help because I hate writing notes. You get what I'm saying? So stuff like this needs to be implemented in the healthcare. The problem with the healthcare is it's an aged dinosaur.
Mhm.
You get what I'm saying?
Mhm.
So, but there are some new systems that are coming online that are applying automation, and you're like, man, this stuff's pretty dope. And now once you start peeping into that, you start doing analytics, and once you start doing analytics, that starts letting you go like you start researching demographics and how people, how they classify everybody, right? And then
Mhm.
once you get over the emotions of it, then you dig in and see what they're trying to say.
Mhm.
You start to go, oh, that's why they treat poor black people that way, and that's why they don't fuck with middle class black people.
Mhm.
Oh, that's why they fuck with poor white people, and they don't fuck with middle class white people. You get what I'm
Mhm.
saying? Or that's why there's influence and money and this and that, right? So you start to see how they're making money off the dysfunction. They don't give a fuck. It's
Mm.
just making money. If you're just a business, it's a great mindset to have, But
Mhm.
if you care about people,
Mhm.
you can't do that, So, um, but yeah, so I moved to Austin, Texas 2 years ago, working on this project, and then started getting more and more immersed in the scene. Came across BGS panel on in terms of he did a video about black boys, and so then because I was when I was doing my analytics and stuff and trying to figure out my market,
Mhm.
and then you came on about a year and a half ago, I want to say, and then
Mhm.
it was just been inspiration ever since. And then this plan just started formulating, and then I was just like, if this boy can live in me, he hates being in school already. He gets straight A's, but he fucks off throughout the whole year.
He's bored.
And I asked him, like, my son, and I'm like, yo, why you? He's like, I hate doing the work. He's like, I just want to take the test and be done. He's like,
Mhm.
holding me back. And so this way you're talking about, makes it to where I can unleash him and let him go as fast as he wants to. So,
Mhm.
but yeah,
Yes.
guys,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
just want to
yeah.
get back. Appreciate
He's
you
not
guys.
Hey,
he's
have a
not
good one, bro.
challenged.
Have a good one, man.
Have a great one, brother. Have a great one, man.
Hey, Black Shingo, go ahead, man.
Huh? Oh, can you all hear me or am I too low?
We can hear
We
you.
can hear you.
Well, I mean, so much was said within the last 10 or 15 minutes. So I'm trying to figure out where I can put my foot down in this conversation.
Mhm.
I mean, I skimmed the article and, I think it's cool that Robert F. Smith is doing this at Morehouse, but I find myself wondering I mean, student debt is a real issue. I mean, I don't know if I would use the word victim, but I'd
That,
say
that that
that.
article shouldn't even be there. That was for yesterday. When we generate the live stream, it picks up from where it left off yesterday. So that's why that's probably there.
Oh, my bad.
That's not even the focus for tonight. The focus for tonight is 2053. Based on some of the live streams I've seen today, I don't think that most ADOS people are going to make it to 2053.
Yeah, well, I know I'll be in my 60s when that time comes around, and I find myself wondering what that world is going to be like.
Mhm.
Because right now I'm 32, I've been in school for most of my life. I mean, I'm a PhD candidate, so it's like,
Mhm.
I've done all the right things that a black person should, or a black male should do. I don't have a
Mhm.
criminal record, no children, none of those things. And so I should be all right. But then there's this job situation, and then academia has its problems. Dr. Phoenix has talked about it here and there in the last few weeks. And so I'm kind of thinking, like, well, maybe I just need to go out there and try my hand in the real world work after a while. Then once I gain enough real life skills, start a business and try to do what I can to get out of whatever is coming down the pike. But it's just difficult.
Well, we're moving into a gig economy, and the gig economy dictates that there will be no actual jobs for you or for people to actually apply to, because of automation. So if you don't have a particular skill set that's in demand, you will fall victim. Even math now, right? They already have what do you call quantum-based computers that are highly efficient at mathematics. They can do it 10 times or 100 times faster than you can.
Yeah, this is what reminds me of when I was studying Marxism. Because what Michael Coleman said earlier kind of struck a chord with me, because he said that he felt that the crisis would be when automation would really come into the fore, and Marx and Capital kind of understood that, like, if you understand labor as variable capital on the basis that the value of labor is based on whatever the cost of living is at any given time in the economy, but then you have this constant capital, which is like machinery and such, that's coming into the process to increase production. And the idea is that if you're a particular capitalist operation and you're making all this money in the market through exchange, then the automation would increase profits until other people catch up with the ability to produce goods of a similar quality. So if that's where we're heading, then it's like, obviously, then the next crisis definitely would bring mass automation. But then the question is, what does capitalism look like after that? And then how do you keep the system going when there's less buyers in the market on account of the fact that people don't really have living wage jobs, unless we're just going to keep doing what we're doing with credit instruments and floating currencies.
Well, the nation states with the most sustainable resources will be the ones to survive, because they can withstand the or they can weather the storm for the most part. A place like the United States that does not have enough resources to go around for its relative to its population will be hit hardest, because they've achieved such high living standards that can't be sustained over the long term. I mean, they can barely keep their bridges and potholes filled, right? Bridges up and potholes filled. So you you think that they're going to take care of their people? I don't think so.
Yeah.
Well, I see. This is another thing people are going to get used to. You're going to have to really get used to the idea that you may have to travel around. That may necessitate you going to other countries and other lands and other places,
right,
to work, to apply your skills. So that means if you have a skill set that's here, that's very good, you might have to apply that, let's say, in Africa. Okay. Or somewhere you may have to apply that elsewhere and kind of work overseas, come back. And of course, the whole online piece and all that is certainly going to be in full effect. So you're going to have to be prepared to be mobile. Those who are doing that now and who are certainly prepared for it are the ones who are going to be better prepared for that. They're going to prepare their kids or whatever for that as well. They that's kind of where we are. Those who have a very parochial mindset, who believe that, well, I'm just going to stay here and I'm not going to learn much else. Well, unfortunately, you're going to have to deal with what's coming down the pike. I did talk about the UBI. I think myself and BGS and others talked about that will be around a bit more, but that's not going to last forever. So, you're really going to have to be trained. We're going to have to become a much better trained society, and our schooling today, which is not gearing people for the jobs of the future, is going to have to change as well. That's why I think a lot of parents who are homeschooling their children are kind of thinking more along those lines, because the system that we have is antiquated. It really still exists from the 50s, where things have changed. So things now are different, and we haven't made that transition either. So there's a lot here. There's a lot here, and for the parent who's coming up, or those who are going to be educating their children, and for the person who is coming out of school, and getting some level of education, they're going to have to think broader terms than where we're thinking now. And you're going to have to be strategic. And you're going to have to look and study, where are the opportunities now? Where are they? You're not going to be able to come out of school now and just get a job at a corporation and sit back for 30 years now. Those days are over.
No, you're going to have to create your own industries at that point. Whoever can write code and whoever can invent or have the ingenuity will be the ones, will be the trendsetters. And the problem is that when you listen to African Americans talk, you don't hear a whole lot of ingenuity coming out of these dialogues, because they're not complex at all. And that's where innovation comes from, complex conversations. What you hear is the hustle, right? A hustle is basically a quick means to an end. How do I get these Jordans onto Craigslist to flip them for another price, or return on investment? That's not an industry, right? That's not innovative thinking. That's, I need cash now, let me barter. So Black people have been fallen to the purposes involved in the bartering aspect in a high performance society where they're getting left behind.
Right. Yeah, I mean, yeah, you're basically talking about running around and being a reseller. All right. Yeah, you can be a reseller for a little while, but
or bootlegger.
Or bootlegger, or whatever. I mean, but really to make serious cash, you're gonna have to really be plugged in. And let me just say this: there are those opportunities. They're gonna be there. Don't think that they're not gonna be around, because they certainly are. The name of the game is: are you poised to deal with that? Are you in a position to deal with that? And that's what we need to be preparing ourselves for, and we need to be talking about that. And we have to show people kind of where these opportunities are, or might be, or will be, and have people start to gear towards that. Those that are fighting against it, and those that are fighting in saying you're an educated lame and all this kind of that, you don't have time for these people. You ain't got time for them. You got to talk with those who are prepared to move, prepared for those who are in position in which to act. That's what this is about.
What's going on, Super Trish?
I don't think he's in the. He's in the chat. I mean, he was on the panel for a second. Yeah, I think you're right though, and where the country's becoming less exceptional in this way, because I mean, you think about it, people in Europe and Africa and Asia are pretty much used to traveling around to work and do things, but like Americans are not, let alone being multilingual. Like, I mean, I've been studying German, and I'm about to start doing Japanese here probably in the next week or so. Just so I can have these options, because it's just like, I don't, if I want to have a decent life, I don't think it's in the States anymore, at least not with the things that I want to do.
What are you listening to, Black Shingo? You Dizzy Gillespie?
Jimmy Smith, The Sermon.
Yeah, that's playing a lot in the background. And what happens here is that YouTube's algorithm would flag us if they think that.
Yeah. They think that's background music. So I was getting ready to say that. I was like,
yeah, I thought you was in the elevator or something like that, man.
Oh no, I'm in the office.
But yeah, I mean, there's a lot going on. There's a lot of dynamic stuff going on. But I think the real business person and the real entrepreneur, in the future, he's gonna travel around a bit, and we have to look at where are the new emerging markets. We have to be able to see a little bit in the future where are things going to develop, and that's going to be Asia and Africa. Those are the new players over the next 100 years. Those are going to be the big ones. That's where it's at, and we're gonna have to sit back and think about that. I'll be dead and gone by the time this thing really washes out. But for the young ones and your grand and your great grands who will be around here kicking, this is something that they have. You got to start preparing for that. You got to start preparing for that now. That's the reality.
Hey, what's going on, Johnny Blaze?
Hey, not too much. How you guys doing this evening?
Johnny Blaze, what's going on, brother?
And not too much. Hey, I'm just listening to the chat here about the whole emerging markets and kids finding jobs. And something that really struck me is that these guidance counselors, they're not setting these kids up for real success. They're just telling them which degree paths to go. But one thing I noticed is that I look at jobs on Indeed. I look at what are these jobs truly requiring, and I try to tell these kids, that's what you need to look at. Think about what you want to do. Look at what the requirements really are before you decide to go to school for different degrees that aren't going to take you anywhere. If you're not going to them, you're wasting your time.
That's right.
You know,
That's
even
right.
in the field, medical imaging, X-ray, I give it 30 years, it's going to be automated.
China already has it automated. So I work in the healthcare and pharmaceutical space, and some of the discussions that we've had on IoT, Internet of Things, is how do you, for the medical space, you have Philips, you have GE Health, and then you have Siemens, who like the three major players, and then you have Boston Scientific and a few other Philips Health as well. All of these major players have IoT based devices that are proprietary. They don't even communicate with each other. So what they're working on right now is a platform, an open source platform that's going to allow all of these devices to communicate with each other and have security involved. So I've been a part of that for the last year or so. Okay. And when it comes to that, in terms of what you just said about automating MRIs and things like that, that's probably going to happen by 2027.
Wow. Mike, are you familiar with PACS and DICOM?
PAX?
No, PACS. Picture Archiving Communication System. That's what the whole.
Oh yes.
Okay. All right. Yeah.
I thought you meant penny arcade exchange.
Wow.
Because like when PACS came around, we lost 3 positions: the darkroom techs, the file room techs, and the transcriptionists, all gone. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So imagine how many more are on their way out the door.
Oh man, it's going to be so much, man. Hospitals are going to get smaller, based on some of the conversations that I've been privy to all year. Big hospitals are closing now because they can't afford to stay open.
Correct.
But what's going to happen is you're going to have more specialist facilities that are going to be more lean, and because of automation. I think Lionel has talked about the VA having robots in the facility carrying medicine and things like that. That's the first step. The next step will be, ambulances and things like that, collecting data off of patients and trauma victims and things of that nature, and then having that fast connectivity through 5G and letting the ER know this is what this victim is, what they have, so on and so forth. It'll be no more manual input. They'll be able to basically have a body cam on them, fast internet connection through 5G. Doctors are preparing for the patient to come in. All of this stuff is happening in real time. And I don't think that most people really understand the impact that that's going to have on job opportunities.
No, they don't. I mean, I just learned about some new software at a conference. It's pretty much telling the doctors now how to order the procedures. So it's doing all the triage for the doctor now.
Yeah. Artificial intelligence.
Yes. And now we got the CAD system on the X-ray side. It basically
that's right.
the doctors.
Yeah. I mean, and they've been talking about that. I mean, so, and I've heard some people say, well, medical costs are going to come down anyway because there's going to be a lot more automation. There's going to be a lot more stuff that's going to go down. There's going to be a lot more less. It's going to make the cost of care less expensive and all that. And they're talking about this is how they're going to reduce the cost of healthcare through automation. So, I mean, this is already heavily in the works. Mm-hmm. So, that's definitely coming up. But that doesn't mean that there's not going to be jobs. There are going to be other areas are going to be opening up. So people have to look to see where is this going to be.
Yeah, but Nagone, those are specialist jobs. There won't be any more general labor jobs, is what we're referring to. So the general labor aspect would be gone. So partners in Massachusetts, they have a kiosk for checking in. So now you don't even have to go to a receptionist or whatever you call those front desk people. It knows when you're approaching it. You put your fingerprint on it, biometric, automatically logs you in, calls your doctor. Doctor comes out and says, come see me.
I'm even thinking, doesn't Amazon have a totally automated warehouse?
Yeah, their warehouses have been automated for quite some time.
Their warehouses are automated, so just regular warehouse jobs. I mean, and then this kind of thing. I mean, where people can make a certain amount of money today. I mean, that's on its way out. I mean, so getting into the specialist area. Wow, you just.
Well, the specialist would be the person who runs repairs on the robots, right?
Yeah.
So the robots that end up having any sort of malfunction, that technician will be there for that, or they'll probably be on call, right? Because the robots generate data. The data gets collected into an event logger, and the event logger pushes out tickets or incidents by what we call page duty. Page duties will then distribute it out to whoever's responsible at the time of the day. And that's how that system works. This is happening right now. This isn't like 10 years from now. This is happening right now.
And then you're also talking about self-replicating robots that can fix themselves. So you're gonna be dealing with that. So yeah, this is a different time. So people have to be very strategic in what we're looking at. That's the difference. And I think when we started to talk about the boomer generation to the millennial generation, why the millennials are running around crying and everything else like that, is the fact that they have to be more strategic now than what the boomers had to be. The boomers were like the last of the me or my generation. We were the last of like the old timers. We were last of that of that World War I to coming into World War II and after the World War II kind of generation. We're the end. We're the end of that. We're the end of the late 19th century. Early 20th century folks. We're the end of that. We're the end of that. We came at the tail end. I was at the very tail end of this. So coming to a new age, and that's that's the problem. So that's an issue, and not everyone could have foreseen these changes. I think the people coming up now who have seen how these changes are, now we see kind of how things are going to go, and we have a better look at what people are going to have to begin to prepare for the future now, as opposed to what we did 20, 30 years ago.
You know what's interesting though, at the university, my campus is broken into two parts. We have a medical side and we have a technology side. And I got to tell you, that technology side has a quarter of the students that the medical side has.
It's not as sexy. It's not as sexy as medical, right? So,
right.
Girls like to walk around in their scrubs looking cute, and guys are, not literate enough to be a part of computer science and information systems, so they get left behind in that area. My undergrad, I did information systems, and I can tell you right now, there were a lot of black males who came in thinking they were going to make hundreds of thousands of dollars, and they found out they couldn't even read a schematic. They couldn't look at a topology. They had no idea how to do basic mathematics to even create a network scheme of IPs.
IP addresses.
IP addresses. So what you had was the guys who can surf YouTube and social media, but they couldn't actually put together the whole architecture, IT architecture, enterprise architecture at all. They were completely lost. They were dumbfounded by this. No matter how much you held their hand, they just could not get it, because they were never exposed to the technology when they were younger. So what they're trying to learn as an adult, there were kids 10, 11, 12 that already had the literacy. Nagone talks about a young 17-year-old Unix administrator who can run circles around most of these adults. So that's where we are right now. And like you said, the campus is kind of empty. I always propose that we should actually allow Black males, you know, as a minority group, to actually have unfederated access to these degree programs, because that's the only way you're going to get them to enroll 100% and have you know, at the high school level, they should be doing intro to computer science.
Agreed. Definitely agree on that. Because it's interesting, like when these guys come in for the medical side, and they're not even going to the high level stuff. We have what we call select and non-select programs. And most of these guys—
Wait. Select and non-select? That term gets used a lot around in the manosphere, man. So,
yeah. So a select program, you take the college entrance exam. If your scores are high enough, you're in the select category. If you're not quite there, we're going to push you over to these non-select programs. You're automatically in.
So explain what a non-select program is.
Okay, medical assistant would be non-select. Massage therapy, non-select. EMT, non-select.
That BMT or EMT?
EMT. And the other one is I think practical nursing is non-select.
Is being a surgeon, Mr. Goodbye?
You know, I think surgical tech might be a select program.
So what happens to these select programs then?
Now, the select programs, there's a vetting process. Basically, you come in, you interview, and we rack and stack them, and then we pick the best ones out of that group, depending on the seat numbers. Yeah, but that was kind of wild. I'm like, you got a select and a non-select. Okay. Well.
Hey, Mike, you're a funny guy.
No, I'm gonna tell them to go ahead and rename the programs Alpha and Beta.
Man, so is this a state-run school or is it a private school?
No, it's a private school. No. It's I'm gonna tell you, we are a for-profit. We're definitely for-profit, so you can imagine my clientele.
Okay. Okay. So do you have any sort of input?
I do for my program.
Okay.
That's it. Yeah. You know, medical imaging, that's mine. That's all I can really deal with that one. The rest of them I have no say.
Okay. Because I think there's an area of opportunity for like healthcare information systems, right? So big data, data science, information technology. I think there's an opportunity to create a program out of that at that level. And that could be considered a select program.
Yes, we do have it's healthcare administration, and I think there's a part of that is tied into it, but not direct. It's not a true focus on the information side.
Okay. So there's a lot of non-selects up in there, huh?
Oh man, a lot of non-selects.
You know, you caught me off guard. You said EMT. I thought EMT.
You know what?
Not real.
We're laughing. Look at conceptually what they actually did to be select versus non-select. It's actually we're looking at a logical interpretation of select versus non-select versus the illogical interpretation that we see in our community.
Very good. Yeah, you're right.
The actual their interpretation is based off of capability and competence, things that really matter.
So it's Super Triz was when you came in, based on what Johnny Blaze is saying, did you go through the select process as well?
Well, because I went through the community college route when I initially came into the to get my RN. The community college route, believe it or not, is a lot more difficult to get in. It's easier to go to a 4-year college because the community college has so many applicants.
Yeah.
And so they have these when I talk to people and we talk about, like, you know, when they first went to nursing program and, like, you know, what the requirements were, and I tell them what my requirements were, they was like, Jesus Christ. Because number one, you have to have straight A's in your sciences, period. And then, like, your overall GPA had to be like a 3.7, you know, just to actually get into the nursing program when I was in Texas for the associates. So it was a pretty high bar because, I mean, they had so many, they only had so many slots, and they had probably I don't know, was it 30, 40,000 people trying to apply just for that school, you know, every year. And they only had I don't know what, 500 slots initially between the articulation program and the conventional program. So, you know, it wasn't a whole lot of slots, so they could be really, really picky about who they let in.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess the whole component was pretty much select, but it was a standard nursing. So there wasn't really an extensive technological component to it.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that's changed now because I did go to my associates back in 2000 and 2007 or 8 or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, now I would hope that they're actually implementing more, you know, technology in it as far as that's concerned. I mean, there are some technology-based nursing out there, such as nursing informatics.
Yep.
But unfortunately, you know, I was doing some research on nursing informatics. I started looking, because, you know, how I do research is I just go on Indeed, I go on Glassdoor, and I go on what's the other site? Indeed, Glassdoor, and there's one other you know, basic a job search site that I go to. And anyways, once I go to those particular sites, you know, what I do is I look and see it's LinkedIn. Indeed, Glassdoor, and LinkedIn. I go on those job sites and then I look and see what the job postings are.
Mm-hmm.
And I see what the greatest demand is.
Mm-hmm.
The greatest demand that I see is in critical care, period.
Mm-hmm.
Like informatics, you may see a job posting once in a blue moon, very, very rarely.
Mm-hmm.
Very, very rarely. Like even the job that I'm in, vascular access, is not, I mean, you always will find a job posting, but it's not a big selection. Even though once you do get a job like what I got now, I mean, it's pretty kickback, but it's not a lot of selection. So this is the reason why, you know, I pretty much mastered what I do now. Now I'm about to go and specifically train for critical care, so that way I can just remain marketable. And I think that's the kind of mindset that you have to have, because even in, you know, as far as I'm concerned as nursing, this, you know, when I seen that Boston Dynamics, my job is not guaranteed.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, Tris, I want to ask you, the question from the chat is, what is nursing informatics?
Well, nursing informatics is basically an amalgamation of nursing and technology. And how that works is essentially you're taking, say for instance, you have a computerized charting system such as Epic, right? Epic, Meditech, and CACS. Yep. These are basically computer programs in which you access patient data and interface with patient data. And you can also input patient data. And so Epic basically will, it allows certain, what's that term that you use, Mike, for say for instance, a glucometer?
A term that you use for glucometer? Like
a glucometer or a vital signs machine, something that gathers patient data.
Oh, you're talking about IoT?
IoT. So you have IoT that and what does that acronym stand for, Mike?
Internet of Things.
Internet of Things. So these are you know, at one time these were just devices that you had to actually, say for instance, you hooked up a vital signs machines. You had to go with a pen and paper, and you had to write down what the machine said. Now these machines directly interface through the internet with your computerized charting system. So as you take the vital signs, as you collect, you know, blood specimens for a glucometer or iStat, it actually compiles that data and uploads it. A lot of times they use like some type of infrared technology or Wi-Fi technology to upload that information into the server, and then it automatically populates on the computerized charting system.
Yeah.
So what the informatics does is you determine how that data interfaces, and you find more efficient ways to access data. So people don't have to search through like all these menus and stuff like that to get to the data, because and the reason why it's nursing informatics is because as a nurse, because going into nursing informatics, you usually have to have a critical care background. And the reason why is because you have that knowledge to understand, okay, when I was a nurse on the floor, how could information technology have made my job easier? And so as an informatics nurse, you find ways to organize menus and compile data, and then you actually have certain form fields that can actually generate reports. And that's basically what your job is, to actually facilitate the efficient administration of healthcare. So that's in a nutshell.
Yeah, and the reason why you're not seeing a whole lot of postings for it is because a lot of that stuff gets outsourced.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it gets outsourced. So you don't really need a dedicated person for that, because those people are pretty much renegades anyways, because they're that there's so much demand for it that they can go to more than one place. So you can basically have your own informatics nursing informatics startup and basically contract out that work back from the institution that that you're working at to a place, and basically have these multi-year contracts. So
interesting.
It's a very lucrative market now. I ran into some big data scientists recently at a cybersecurity firm, and these are PhD candidates, man, and they're making 150 and they're only like 24, 25.
Hey, Super Trez, did you say CHCS by chance?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if they still have that. When I was working at the VA hospital, we used CHCS.
Yeah. They still the military still uses it. They have it's the underlying program. I think the new one is called Alta, but it's still the original. It was just funny when I heard it.
Yeah, I know you probably haven't heard that in a while. I mean, for the time when I did use CHCS, it wasn't bad, actually. Actually, you know what? Metatech, which is more like a DOS-based program, once you actually learn the keystrokes, it's actually pretty efficient.
Yeah, it's logical. Yeah, it's very logical.
But unfortunately, a lot of people so especially with the newer generation, when you've been accustomed to Windows-based programs, getting the whole swing of DOS-based may be problematic. So that's the reason why they go to like programs like CHCS or Epic, because it's a more familiar interface with the point and click mouse, things like that, drop down menus, and it may be easier for some people, but actuality, I think it's slower because you're using that mouse. It actually, if you look at,
well, you use the mouse now, but touch screens are coming on board now. So you're basically just touch and go type of operations coming down.
Actually, we do have some touch screens, but they're only like available to certain like specialty groups that actually pay, because that stuff comes out of your budget. So whatever technology now, like if you want like a touch screen to make your job easier, you got to come out of your budget. So certain departments have it. Like I think some of the physical therapists have the touch screens.
And there's actually a company BlackBerry acquired called QNX that has they build their own operating system for cars and whatnot, but they have haptic inputs. So basically you move your fingers around like a magician, and that determines the flow, the interface of the system that you're working with. So if you move your hand to the left, and you kind of swipe left without actually touching the screen.
Okay.
That's the sort of progress that they're making in terms of that. Plus, BlackBerry is involved in healthcare now, so you're going to start to see a whole lot of changes in the next couple of years to health information systems, because everyone's moving to the cloud. Everybody's moving. Edge computing is taking place. A lot of 5G technology, new Wi-Fi 802.11, 802.11ax, which is the equivalent of 5G on the wireless side. Most of your new IoT devices, industrial IoT, IoT, and consumer IoT is actually going to embrace all that stuff by 2022. So you're talking about rapid communication layers on the healthcare side for equipment to communicate with each other. And we've been working on an open source platform for IoT to actually have all these medical devices in IoT communicate with each other, because they're so proprietary. So there's going to be a lot of changes happening by 2022. Not saying that SuperTriz will be out of work, but there's viable markets that's going to come out of all of this new technology coming out. But if you don't have the immediate skill set for it, you're going to be screwed.
Well, let me be clear, Mike V, and to everybody that's watching on YouTube, SuperTriz will never be out of work.
Man.
I can't speak for anybody else, but I know I'll never be out of work.
Well, we'll take you at your word. So, but yeah, this 2053. I'd like to get Dr. Phoenix's opinion on this. What do you've been very vocal about 2025. I think that's a little bit too close to call for 2025. I don't think anybody's going to be in the streets starving, like in Syria, eating stray cats and stuff like that.
Good evening to everyone on the panel.
Evening, brother.
No, I don't. No,
Dr. Phoenix.
Good brother. No, I don't think folks would be out starving and stuff like that. No, I don't think that's going to necessarily happen. But what's happening is that job markets are going to continue to consolidate. And, just going, even with the healthcare piece, again, before I started med school, I was a critical care nurse. And so I went through a baccalaureate program. And essentially, one thing I would add to what SuperTriz said earlier about the community colleges being more competitive, I would say part of the reason, and although I do believe the baccalaureate program might be slightly more competitive, just given that most folks will eventually go that route in the beginning, anyway, is because a lot of times baccalaureate programs tend to have partnerships with the associate programs, and so they generally kick students down to the associate, to the community colleges who were not able to get into the baccalaureate programs. And so I've been rather vocal about the whole cloud piece in healthcare, because I've been in critical care, and part of the reason critical care is such an in-demand area, just kind of look at currently what's going on with the health of the country. We're talking about a country where you have about a third of the people that have diabetes alone. So we have somewhere around 100 million people with diabetes. So what happens? You have all kinds of complications from diabetes. Diabetic patients, most of them will eventually at some point become septic. You end up in the ICU with septicemia. Many of them will eventually get amputations. I mean, this is just one way to look at it. We have extreme rates of cardiovascular disease, folks who have myocardial infarctions, folks who have venous insufficiency issues. I mean, I'm sure SuperTriz sees that in his area with vascular access. I mean, these are areas where, typically in ICU, you will see all of those patients who have vascular issues, patients who have even, I've seen folks who need to be in inpatient psychiatric, but they show up because they're schizophrenic, and, they're talking about they're going to take their life. And so they admit them because they don't have nowhere else to put them.
Hey, Dr. Phoenix, what program are you in now?
What do you mean? Oh, you mean like where I'm at for med school?
Yeah. Okay. So this is med school. So this is the MD program. It's pretty sweet.
Yeah.
Oh, so you're select or non-select?
I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know whatever
Let
that
Johnny Blaze tell it.
whatever that definition is. I mean, again, it was kind of funny because I was, listening to you brothers last night. I remember when I was younger, but man, I could have did this a long time ago. I could have did this about a decade ago.
Mhm.
But I spent a lot of time, had money, doing all kinds of crazy stuff. But with that said, I do think, in terms of automation, I think the medical specialties that are very heavily image oriented, like
right,
ophthalmology,
right,
radiology, I think those are certainly very much in danger. Again, there are even
right,
startups out there now that are specifically dedicated to redefining the role of a radiologist.
right, right, right,
So,
right.
there's lots. I primarily have worked with Epic. I really haven't worked with some of the other ones, some of the other EMR applications like Cerner or Allscripts. I did work with Cerner or Allscripts as a student, but I most of the time I work with Epic. Typically if you're a new grad or you're being hired as an intern, like for me, I started out as when I was still an undergrad. I had about an 8-month internship in the critical care. That's how I got into critical care.
Mhm.
And so they had to send me to their training, to the Epic training facility. Obviously I'm here in Wisconsin, so
Mhm.
Madison is there, but I didn't go to Madison, but they have little sites all over this state, and I had to go to one that was about a 3-day training exercise ordeal, if you will. And so yeah,
Mhm.
so I would certainly say in regards to that, um, I think what's happening is that we're going to see a lot of programs, certainly at the community college level, that are going to be phased out. Hell, even at the baccalaureate level, most of your baccalaureate degrees are worthless. About 80-90% of them are worthless.
I agree with you. I think community colleges will be phased out because they're not going to be able to get state funding because they're not turning in, they don't have the return on investment for students. Students are not enrolling as much. I think we covered an article some months ago. Community colleges are empty. Because
Well,
people
I think part of that problem lies in the fact, you know, I don't want to be try to be diplomatic about this, but a lot of it lies in the fact what typically happens at community colleges. For Black students going to community colleges, it's just another way to get some extra cash. You get your Pell grants, you get your financial aid. You might even get some student loans, because I do know students right now in community college who are in nursing programs at community colleges, and they're sitting on 30 grand in debt. I don't know how the hell that happens,
wow.
but certainly a scenario I know of, and they're females.
Well, I found something interesting. I had a good friend. He ended up graduating out of Arizona at ASU, but he went to the community colleges there. And I remember I was out there visiting them, and I was out there looking around, and it seemed like the community colleges out in Arizona were pretty stacked up. Had a lot of people in there. I can say Bronx Community, Westchester Community College here in New York, where I am in the in the lower part of the state. I'm just outside of New York City, and the suburbs seem to have a fairly robust student body. And I know for a fact that at Bronx Community, I think it's Westchester as well. If you have a B plus average, you're going to Cornell. Cornell is taking you, especially as a minority, as a Black student. You're going to Cornell. So
Yeah, and that's certainly true.
So they have these programs that are
Yeah,
really that will feed into those programs, because at community colleges you can only take a level 1, level 2 courses. They don't have level 3, level 4, and so forth like that you're going to get at a 4-year. But certainly, the chemistry and your biology and so forth. They're aggressive. They're
that's
aggressive
certainly
courses.
very true. I would agree with that. Typically all community colleges at the very least have partnerships with the state university systems in those respective states. So there's generally a pipeline for you to leave, for you to do at your general ed at a community college, and then transfer to a 4-year public
Yeah.
institution. So typically, I have not seen a state where that is not true. So that's what typically happens. Now, again, I think as it pertains to Black students, what happens is there's a lot of stagnation that happens at community colleges. One is because, you know, folks using money for things other than school related activities. Two, students are not taking it serious. And you do have a part of the student body that all they do, they just enroll, get the money, and they never show up for class. That's, you know, I know folks don't want to hear that, but that's what happens in many cases.
Well, that's what happens when you're non-select.
I have no clue, brother.
Hey, I'll say this.
I just want to ask Dr. Phoenix something. What kind of medicine are you looking to practice? Potentially?
You know, I'm, in all honesty, I was thinking ER. I have a background. I used to be, again, I was a former Army medic, but I used to be an EMT as well. So, you know, even with my critical care background as a nurse, I mean, a lot of what I've done for the most part throughout my adult life has typically been in trauma, emergency medicine, stuff like that. So that's kind of where I'm at. I mean, I'm not really a surgical type of person. I can't do the lungs. I can't do the standing and all that stuff. I'm good on that.
Okay, so then you don't mind me calling you the Surgeon General of the Black Rainbow, do you?
No, you know, it's ironic because, you know, earlier today I was talking to, I have a young brother. I have a couple young brothers that I mentor. One of the brothers, I was just talking to him earlier. And so he's in his first semester of his freshman year in college. And him and I were just kind of going on. He's looking to go into nursing. And him and I were just talking about some things and, you know, just kind of going over where he was at, because Super Triz was right on the money. I don't care what these programs, if you go online, they say what the minimum requirements to get in a program, the minimum GPA. I don't care what they say online. You need to put that GPA. If it says a 3.0, it's at least a 3.5.
Oh yeah, I mean,
I always tell students to shoot for that. You know, these programs are just hella competitive, especially at the community college level, because a lot of times what you get are folks who already have baccalaureate degrees, and so they're coming into the healthcare as probably as a second career or even a second degree. And so, you know, again, those folks have already been able to do a 4-year program, get out. So they make those programs just that much more competitive by entering into that whole process.
Yeah. I was helping a friend of mine get into PA program, and the PA program, I was shocked to see that you had to have like a 3.7, 3.8. I mean, it was crazy. I mean, they wanted really high grades. Very high grades for that as well.
Yeah, I know. I have a few folks from back in my military days that they're the PAs. I think one, I know she might be a captain. A major right now. But I know for a fact, if you went through the PA program in the military, it is rough. I mean, it is hard.
Yeah, it's tough,
I mean, they do not. You cannot fail. If you fail, you get discharged from the service. They do not play. But in general, the PA programs, I would say, at least from what I've seen and just some folks that I've talked to, I would say arguably they are even more competitive to get into even medical school.
Yeah, and that's what they're saying. And the reason why they say that is a lot more people are pushing for those programs, because they're saying that medical school, even though you have to be very competitive, I think what's really keeping a lot of people from going to medical school these days, it's not only the time, it's the money.
Yeah, it is the money. I mean,
it's the cash.
Yeah,
you're coming out and you're paying close to $250,000 at some of these private universities for medical school education. It's a lot of money.
Well, you know, I think I said this a while back, but I have not met a medical student that didn't have anything less than $350,000 in debt. Every Black medical student I know has a minimum $350K in debt.
Yeah, a lot of people are saying, "Listen, I've got a massive house mortgage when I come out," and forget about your undergrad loans that are there. So a lot of people who are coming out, they're going right from undergrad, and a lot of them are going to medical school, and they're looking at over $500,000 in these debts, and it's and they're coming out, and it's it's a tough road to hoe. It's a tough road to hoe, as they say. So,
Well, I think part of the reason you have such massive debt for medical school students is it's not even just once you're there, it's really the process before you get there. I mean, just preparing for the MCAT is a multi-billion-dollar business.
Yeah,
You're talking about if you go through one of
Kaplan.
the major test prep companies like Kaplan or Princeton or some of these other folks, they're charging you a minimum $2,000 just for basic 3 to 4 month preparation program.
Yeah.
Hey, let Johnny Blaze ask his question.
Go ahead, Johnny.
Oh, no, I was going to just make a comment, something about what Super Triz and Dr. Phoenix were talking about, the whole community college, the competitiveness. And see, this is where the for-profit school comes in. Like for us, instance, no prerequisites. Long as you can become the select, you're in there, and we're fast. So, places like that, that's their one advantage: speed and access.
Well, I would agree with that. I would agree with that. I mean, even for the field of physicians, I mean, for medicine, you have Caribbean schools. So I mean, typically Caribbean schools do have the same requirements as stateside schools. However, most of them they don't necessarily I want to be very clear when I say this. They require the MCAT, but they don't use it as a process of admissions.
Right.
They need the MCAT because the MCAT scores have to be reported to the Department of Education. That's how medical schools keep their funding and maintain their accreditation. Is that you have to report MCAT scores to the Department of Education. That's how you get the Title IV funding and all of that stuff.
Now, my question now, what do you think about all of the prerequisites for some of these programs, whether it be nursing or what have you? But it seems like a lot of times the prerequisites basically add on like almost another year of school. So let's say your program is a 4-year, but you got to get a year worth of prereqs. Now you're in school for 5.
Well, I think that from my perspective, the prerequisites, let's say, for instance, for the nursing program, they are extensive. But I think that a lot of the prerequisites are applicable. Now, as far as the English and the like some of the mathematics classes, some of the history classes, and things like that, I don't know if they're directly applicable to your practice because it's more general and broad, like the type of writing that you do for say for medical purposes. It's a different type of writing. It's more concise and it's more objective as far as subjective as opposed to subjective. So I think that the actual curriculum can be really, really streamlined from my perspective. If I was had some type of authority to to kind of recalibrate the curriculum, I mean, I could take that 4-year program, make it 3 years, and then in those 3 years have a much better nurse. A more competent, more prudent nurse. Because a lot of those courses, they're too general, like English. It's like a generalized English, and then like a lot of the other courses once you get in the program, they're like all like basically they're not really focused on what you do as an actual when you're in practice. So it's really like I think it's more or less a waste of time, a lot of the courses. But at any rate, the actual prerequisites do add on a significant amount of time, but they're actually applicable. You will have to kind of refer back to that knowledge base once you're in the program.
Okay.
I would agree exactly with what Super Triz said. I think certainly for nursing, just the prerequisites alone. Again, if you went, let's say if you were someone who did an ADN and you need to go do a BSN, typically you have to do even more courses just to be able to qualify, just to, be able to complete that BSN. So, typically, even if you did an ADN program, that's about a 3-year endeavor. Then you tack on about maybe another 1.5 years for to complete your BSN. And so, I think in general, the prereqs are at a minimum probably going to be about 2 years, and certainly with medical school, show me a physician that can remember the organic chemistry he took. Most of them will not remember it. Most of them can't even tell you a lot of those equations that, like the radiologists, they can't tell you a lot of those equations that they do. That's what medical physicists are for. They do all these number, they do all the number crunching.
Absolutely. I'd like to ask you, do you remember the McKellis-Menten equation?
I mean, this is just stuff you cram in your head so you know it for the MCAT.
Hey, I teach radiation physics, man, and I can tell you right now, most of my students, once they pass, and I teach for the X-ray techs, the medical physics side. I'm telling you, as soon as the guys are done, that stuff gets dumped.
Medical physics. So you're basically talking about the Röntgens and radiation physics. So you're talking about half-lives and all that kind of
But see, you forget a lot of the information, but you're able to conceptually visualize what's occurring.
Yes.
So like
Well,
and like a lot of people like there's a lot of formula stuff. Like I don't remember all this stuff that that I learned in school, like every little finite detail, but it really helps like when you're trying to do patient teaching.
Yeah.
When you have that fundamental understanding of what's going on,
absolutely,
you're able to teach it in a more simplistic term, but it really helps with patient teaching. And then like from a critical thinking standpoint, because a lot of times you encounter things that may not necessarily been taught in books, because they can't teach you every potential scenario, but because you have a knowledge base and you understand conceptually what's going on, you can kind of draw reasonable conclusions based on some of the fundamental knowledge base that you have. So
now by you just saying that SuperTree is conceptualized, that is my number one issue with a lot of my Black students. They cannot conceptualize. They can't. They have to physically see it, and what I teach a lot of, you cannot see.
Visual learners.
So it sounds like we got some educators here.
Well, I mean, some of the stuff is good. I mean, that's why I like some of the diagrams and how they kind of do things. I think with Khan, because you get a chance to see how you get a chance to visualize, because that visualization sometimes is an excellent learning tool, because just being abstract and just thinking about things and not looking at it may not be the best way for all students to learn. So I do think that plays a role. I remember many years ago when I was dealing with physics and calculus, and they had a program that came out of Caltech called the Mechanical Universe. I don't know if you guys might be aware of it, Dr. Goldstein and them, and they had these wonderful graphics, and they showed you exactly how a lot of the stuff worked, and it showed you how the calculus worked, showed you, just all of these different concepts of what physics and how mathematics, kind of worked, and you saw the stuff like in action as they did the stuff graphically, and it brought a lot home. It actually was a great tool. And this was in the late '80s, but a lot more schools have incorporated this a lot more into their teaching, because they think it's a valuable tool, and it certainly is. So yeah, I think some Black students may have a problem with that.
I would say this
have different tools.
I would say this much. Certainly, having started out in critical care, you do use a lot of chemistry when you're a critical care nurse, because you deal with patients who are septic. You deal with patients who may be acidotic, who may be alkalotic. You deal with patients who might have, you're constantly titrating meds. So I mean, you do use quite a bit of chemistry when you're in ICU, because you're gonna have a lot of patients that are ventilated. So you need to understand blood gases and how gases dissolve in the blood and all that stuff. So I mean, yeah, that is always an issue. And so for me, even having had done a internship in critical care, it was still a rough transition from that to an actual nurse. I mean, this is why typically new grads aren't hired into critical care. Typically, it tends to be the realm of more experienced nurses. And that's why many hospitals have started nurse residencies, nurse critical care residencies, whatever, to address the issue of the fact that, one, there's a lot of older nurses who are critical care nurses, far more than there are young nurses. And so you need younger nurses to start to replace the older nurses, excuse me. And so, but it is a rough transition going from that, because realistically, I will estimate you only learn about 50% of what you really need to know as a nurse. Even from folks that I know that are practicing physicians, 50% of what they learned was in school, and they learned the other half of it out in practice.
Absolutely.
So
Hey, I want to go to DE Raptor and Art New Strong. DE, what's your take on the topic rethinking 2053? Is that too far of a stretch? What's your thoughts on this for Black people? I think DE might be on the flight. Art New Strong, what's your take on the question?
No, could you repeat that question again?
Rethinking 2053, is that too far of a stretch for the survival of the Black community, or
Are you talking about the year 2053?
oh yes 2053. Dr. Claude Anderson says 2055. We said 2053, but based on the conversations that's been happening just today alone on some of these other channels and these other networks, I don't think that they'll reach 2053. I think that's too liberal of a thought, and I think Dr. Phoenix has been very vocal about this. 2020, he says 2025. I think that's too early. I think 2030 might be that, that window of opportunity that will be missed by ADOS to actually cement themselves for the next century.
Okay, so you're talking about as far as being prepared
To survive, yes.
to survive. It's kind of hard to say because I'm hearing people talking about nursing and medical and things like that. I deal more for the arts and just maybe mainly education as well, and even some aspects of business.
Mm-hmm.
So, from what I gather, it depends on who's teaching and what's there. And right now, we're looking into automation, and that's going to be a battle as well. I'm not sure, man. I'm not sure how far they would reach, because every now and then we always have to put our money on the young to fight through whatever situation there is. And between the millennials and the Generation Z,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, because I think the millennials are still trying to find their ways even at the age of 35,
Mm-hmm.
whereas the Generation Z is trying to make sense of something that's not even there yet, but even actually show me something with proof. They're really adamant on that. Show me something with proof that I could touch and feel with my hands.
Mm-hmm.
So, I'm hearing what the brothers were saying earlier about their ways of having the students to learn in different ways. I had to change this year. I had to really change the way I do it, because most people are used to the whole lecture, the school of fish, everybody do everything at the same time. But right now, if you want some things done, I know it's hard for some subjects, but I think you would have to deal with them individually, based on their abilities, versus trying to force everybody until they get their knowledge so they can move up. It's a challenge, man, especially the 2019. I don't know if I was able to answer the question effectively.
No, that's fine. DE Raptor, your hand is raised. Mr. Raptor. Bajan
Okay.
boy. Bajan boy.
I was trying to get this thing on mute myself.
Okay.
Good evening, everyone.
Hey, what's going on,
This
bro?
conversation going on here. You guys are really dealing with the professional. When you ask that question, you can't really ask it. You can involve a professional in discussion, but they are not the ones who are going to be missing, either missing in action or missing out on the deadline. And I'm saying that for two reasons. One is economics, and the other one is the politics. The economic part is driven by the technology And with the technology, you have this big division, with really probably about one. I always say 10%, but people say 1%. I mean, BGS say 1%, Paul say 1%, but I try to include as many people as I hope will survive. So I say 10%. 10% of the black community is kind of prepared. Either
Actually,
you
I say it's more
like
like
Ty City, who's a
3%.
mechanic, and he's driving his own business. And then you got guys who are plumbers and so forth. Those guys are pretty much settled into the economic situation. Now, the people who are going to be nurses and doctors, the fields are going to change. As a matter of fact, I see them changing right now. The ones who are going to hit by 2025 are the secretaries, the people who work in Walmart, or I seen a place in Japan where the warehouse is totally, they went from 100 people in the warehouse to 10. So when you walk into a store and you just talk to the microphone, and everything that you drive up to the microphone, like you drive to a McDonald's, talking to the microphone, drive around the other end, and your box is there with your groceries loaded in it. That's going to drive part of economics. What's going to happen is that the other 90% of our people, either they are going to be, when they start getting hungry, they're going to have to accept anything that they can get. And then the people who used to, the people who are pushing the drugs on the corner and all of that, they're still going to do it. But they're going to be doing it in a place like underneath Brooklyn Bridge, where nobody's going. Nobody at all is going to go down there. Just black people. If you go down there, it's it's like being in Syria, or not Syria, in Libya right now. You know, the survival of either somebody's going to eat you or you eating somebody. And that's going to happen in a lot of cities throughout the United States. Black people, as far as the politics go, we are being shoved out of the politics. And there are a lot of black people. The black elite is helping this situation, helping black people get pushed out of politics. A lot of them are saying, you know what? Don't vote Democrat, because the Democrats have never done anything for you. But the problem is that you don't get locked into voting Republican either. And the thing is that you don't just vote in the presidential election. You have to vote basically locally in your state elections.
Locally.
And your state elections, you're going to tell the state representative what you want as a group. And the black elite is not allowing black people to do that. So 2053, that's too far. I'm like you, Mike. I'm saying 2030 to 2032. That's when the economics and the politics going to come together and push people out, because if you see in China, the Chinese don't accept the lower level, even though they feed them, they give them jobs, but the Chinese go with the technology that's driving, whether you're the doctor or what, everything is technology, and they are pushing that. Every other country in the world, not every other country in the world, the Far East especially, is pushing that. America is the only place that I see not pushing it the way the Chinese are. And rather than push that, America is going the other direction. America is pulling people from other countries to do the job here, but trying to keep other countries from going all in it. So you in America, or you in Brazil, or you in Europe, as a black man, you're falling behind.
Hey, Mike, can
I was just about to go to Paul Bryant and then go to Gabe. Paul Bryant, you have anything you want to add to the topic and the discussion?
Yeah. The very first off, everybody on the panel tonight, good evening. How was everybody?
Good, brother.
Good, Paul.
Good, brother.
I just want to, the first thing I'd like to do is to add on
The
to what
Minister of Defense.
Brother Nagone, the consigliere. Yes, sir. Much respect always.
Always.
I just want to add on to what Dr. Phoenix was saying. Myself, I had a major surgery and I went to the best hospital in New York State, which is New York Presbyterian. And it's the top 5 hospital in the entire country. So my first 7 days, I was in the ICU. 2 nurses over 30. 2. My second 7 days, I spent in the surgical recovery ward. So for those 7 days, I saw 1 nurse over the age of 30. These are RNs doing their things, very competent young ladies. But it's a far cry from when I was growing up to see nurses dressed in all white who were 40 plus. So whether they were white, Spanish, Black, or Asian, all under 30, highly competent. That's where that field is absolutely going. Dr. Phoenix could not have hit that any more on the head if he tried to. When we're looking at automation and how emerging technology is changing the society of this country as we know it, I'm of the belief that 2025 to 2030, if you are not prepared, you will be left behind. And that is the majority of Black people. So now automation, by its very definition, will hit low skills and any menial jobs first because they are the easiest to replicate. They're low skill. Like DE said, secretaries, Walmart, even manufacturing, very easily automated. In the medical field, a lot of techs, imaging techs, they're going to be phased out. They're going to be replaced, and that's happening. So the question that, from my opinion, has to be looked at: where is the mindset amongst Black people in America to embrace these technologies? The mindsets are not there. So by the time they realize what's going to happen, they're so far stuck on being a victim that they're going to point and blame to everything, but not realize that they themselves did not do anything to change their situation. So what I'm saying is that the youth who are involved in education, whatever the field may be, whether it's medical, white collar, or even blue collar, it is incumbent upon parents to make education your primary focus. You have to get your children involved in these fields because they will be positioned and they will be the ones who will go into these collegiate programs. They will be the ones who will go into these technological programs. But it's going to rub a lot of people the wrong way when I say this. I do not see that with the majority of Black people. So without going too far down that rabbit hole, I'm of the opinion 2025 to 2030. By 2025, it's already going to be too late for the majority of Black people. By 2030, you will see the majority of Black people in America relegated to permanent underclass status. And from that point, you are done because at that point, what are we talking about? Re-education and retraining for what fields? With zero foundation and zero background, what are they going to be re-educated for? They don't even have the mindset to want to focus on education. Okay, so that's why I keep saying, you have to look at and work with the best and the brightest. And I'll say it before, and I'll keep saying it again. Brother DE, I don't say it's 1%, but I say it's 3% tops. It really is.
Let me go to Gabe next. Gabe, do you have anything you want to add to the topic and the discussion?
Yeah, sure. Can you guys hear me?
We can hear you fine.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Yeah, I think that is it's a very interesting topic. I think with the I'm not big on actually knowing how to predict the timing, but it's seeming like it's that number, that 2053, it seemed like it's decreasing more and more every single day as we see advances in technology coming to the forefront. So I would say, but even so, it's interesting because you look at 2053 or 2030, right? In order for African Americans, ADOS, however you want to classify us, to have a particular, I guess, position or a particular, yes, some type of stake in these fourth industrial technologies, right? They can't start closer to that 2053 or 2030 position, right? Because if they just start right as soon as we're coming up to that particular area, then you'll have a lot of individuals just jumping into the field who are very, I guess, new to that type of technology. So I think that even for us to have a stake or even having a particular position within these technologies emerging, individuals have to start now rather than later or closer to those periods of time in which things will be changing drastically. So I think that even though those times are right, 2030, 2053, the time to make a change is actually now in order to have any type of stake in those different industries. I think that's one point. And it's even changing just for traditional engineering, right? Because I went to school for electrical engineering and I got a lot of engineering peers, a lot of engineering buddies. And it's hard for a lot of them with those traditional theories. So example, I had a real close friend of mine. He went to school for chemical engineering. So he got his bachelor's in chemical engineering, went and got his master's in chemical engineering. I think he was studying material science in his master's. And then he went and got an MBA in order to try to really solidify himself within corporate environment. He started working for a large organization called ArcelorMittal, right? They make, they like compete with like US Steel. And so they have like a lot of different like foundries. And so they're a very large organization. When he left that role, it was very difficult for him to find other roles, even though he had the education and the traditional backing. But he didn't have any like technical skills in data analytics. He didn't have any ability to program anything that added value to an organization who they already had as chemical engineers on staff. So it's even hard to just transition from role to role to role, even with some of those traditional quote unquote technical type of degrees in education, such as chemical engineering. So just one is that, we got to start now if we're looking to have any stake in those fields. And two, even for those quote unquote traditional technical roles, like in chemical, like engineering, you have to have additional skill sets to back up those particular traditional type of educations. So
yeah, and that's a very good point. Because one of my coworkers came from Syria, and I talk about him pretty extensively here. He left Damascus when ISIS showed up, and he came here, went to Johnson and Wales, and got his degree in network engineering and with a focus in cybersecurity. And he and I both got into cybersecurity at the same time. And this brother speaks 3 different languages. He speaks French, speaks Arabic, speaks English very fluently. And you had the FBI, you had the CIA, you had all institutions knocking down the door looking for this guy to hire him. And he's out of the gate, he's 200,000 easy. He's a millennial.
Sure.
And when I see someone come from a war-torn country able to succeed in such small amounts of time, and I look at ADOS or African Americans, and you say, well, 2053, well, that was a pretty liberal projection, but now you start to really think, especially when I use social media as a barometer to determine where the temperature is for these sort of trajectories. I'm listening today, man, and I sent going the link, man. It's just like I don't know. I don't know, man. I hear the discussions that's being had. People advising their sons to marry single mothers. There's nothing wrong with that. Setting their sons up for failure. Just an absolute, disaster, man. Absolute disaster.
Absolute insanity. And these people are, you have to. you have to develop victorious policies to have a highly victorious outcome, you know. And victory here is just being as successful as you can in the business that you're going to get involved in. You got to be educated in the future. It's going to show you that. You're going to have some. You're going to have to be educated. And when I say educated, it doesn't mean you don't have to have a PhD or whatever, but you're going to have some learned skill in a specific area. And no, the mindset. You know, the Minister of Defense, Paul Bryan, he talks about that. Some people don't like some of what he says, and I'm in total agreement. It's a mindset. There is a mindset you're going to have to really develop. Now, when these Syrians and others come over here, they come over here with a singular focus. You have many Africans who come over the same way. They come over here with a singular focus. Like, hold on a second.
Steve Jobs was Syrian.
Yeah, he was definitely Syrian. Absolutely. And they come in here and they're looking. They got a very specific focus. I'm going to school. I'm going to get educated. I'm going to look at where I can have a very profitable career that's going to keep me going for a long while, and there's nothing that's going to deter me. And I'm going to sit there and focus on this. I'm not going to let anything else get in my way. If that means I'm not going to get laid for a while, or if I'm not going to be running around, if I have to delay all that and wait, that's fine. When people talk about select and non-select and all the stuff like that,
that's for the academic programs at select versus non-select.
Well. Let's talk about some of these other stuff, these other titles you have that people drop out, and that's fair enough. Let them have it. I'm not going to sit down and debate them, but I can tell you this: $250,000 in the bank, and a nice crib, and a nice job. You select like a motherfucker.
All right, New Straw. Your hand is up.
Yeah, verdade, Omar.
Yeah, tudo bem, hein?
Estou bem agora. Você?
Tá bom, trabalhando muito, né?
Okay. Now, brother.
Somebody please hit the ASAP button, please.
ASAP button.
Okay. What's that?
Oh, Spanish. Spanish as a second language, but it's not Spanish.
I know it's Portuguese.
Oh, the SAP button.
Bad joke.
It's Portuguese. Okay. Brother Nagon and brother Paul, what was it? They were on point. You have no choice but to make sure your child has some kind of form of education that is practical for living. I don't know why people are getting cavalier about he shouldn't have to learn how to do that. He can just go play basketball, football. I mean, maybe he has a career in the NBA or the NFL, I don't know. But if he doesn't, or if she doesn't, you need to find something like, especially in the electronics and the science, all the things that we live for, because sometimes even if they're getting educated, it's not only for being hired, but it's mainly for your survival. So you got to get that in there under your belt. I think people need to really take that in consideration and consider it an emergency rather than a choice.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
I'd really love to speak to that, because there was a stream many months ago, many moons, and the topic was sending your child to a Montessori school and other private schools. So in my personal case, I sent my baby girl to a Montessori school. When she left there, I sent her to a private school. The principal of the school, her philosophy was she wanted to challenge the accepted notion of what a child can be taught at a given age. When my daughter got to a certain age and it was time for her to leave the school, I enrolled her in the New York City Prep for Prep program. So my daughter went into that program. She excelled, and she went to one of the Manhattan prep schools. And so she went to one of the schools where Trump kids and Rockefeller kids go to. So point is, her focus from day one, since she came out the womb, was education for skills for life. One of my parents was born and raised in the Caribbean, was a teacher professionally before coming to this country as a grown adult. And my focus when I came out the womb was education. I was always told, but I want to watch so-and-so on TV. And I used to hate having to hear, listen, they learn their sums. They went to school. They made their money. Now you're a dummy watching them on that boob tube. Turn it off and get into your books. Learn, and learn. So my point here is, again, Black American culture, education and success is not celebrated. Look at what is celebrated. Okay, so it's all about education, and I don't want to sound like I'm beating a dead horse or I'm attacking anyone or any culture. I'm not. My point is, as an individual, you have to focus on education and send your child to the best school possible. It doesn't matter where it is or how far it is. If it is the best academically producing institution, that is where you should send your child. If you have to sacrifice yourself to have nice shiny things so that child can have the best possible start in this, especially with this fourth industrial revolution, in my humble opinion, that is what you should do. Because then, as you're working on your legacy to pass down to your offspring, they are well set to move into this fourth industrial revolution, so they do not inherit dust, and that they will also be well prepared and educated to succeed in life.
Go ahead.
I really want to second that if I can.
Go ahead.
That's why I put 24 years next to my name as a joke, because I've been teaching for 24 years. And this is not my opinion. If people are listening, this is not a arbitrary, type of judgment. This is stuff that's been working other than our community. Okay. I mean, I'm out here in Los Angeles, and people out here in LA, that most of the time UCLA, it was supposed to be like the epitome of white establishment as far as, the college and what have you. If you go there now, if you see where the Bruins Bear is, it looks like Chinatown. Okay. And a lot of these people, let's be real, I've been on college commissions and everything. A lot of these people didn't get scholarships. They have money. Where that money coming from? From some of these stores that's in our community. We pay for their education. Okay. I mean, that's real. This is no guess. This is real. So in the meantime, if we know this or be able to at least circulate or even research, don't believe me, but the key thing is that, because I hear a lot when I talk to parents, and there's always an excuse why their child should not get an education. And I'm like, okay, well, we're not going to just say he's going to get an education for needlepoint or anything like that. I mean, he has to be responsible for the major that they choose. They have to be counseled. They have to be vetted on what is going to be out there that's going to bring the money home, whether he's in leadership position with it or whether he's being hired. These things have to be carefully thought. So we're not just saying throw the kids in college and they'll come out like brand new. These things have to be plain and played through. The last thing I would say is that, when you go to these colleges, it's not there to change your life and all that kind of stuff. You're just getting your expertise, sharpened a little bit, and you have that piece of paper to show whoever's hiring you or giving you the business that this is what I can do. It's not supposed to be able to guarantee you a job. That's between you and how you'll be able to communicate in your personality. So I'm just trying to let people know that it's not all about just going to college and everything's taken care of. That's not what I'm trying to say. I'm just saying that you got to put all these things in play, not just going there and finishing and leaving. It's not guaranteed.
Hey, Gabe, your hand is up. Go ahead.
Yeah. Kind of even on that point as it concerns children receiving education that will make them successful in the future, I guess in the job market or any other personal endeavors. I think, and I think we've spoken about this before, is how the parents need to also have some type of involvement in that educational process. Because, I think in the Black community, like the consensus is that you send your child to school and then the school is not only a babysitter, but they're supposed to teach your child every single thing that they need to know. And I think that that's just a faulty mentality and a faulty perspective, because I think as parents, it's very important for the parents to pass on knowledge, life skills, and even things that will help children be successful in the job market, for them to be able to for them to be able to excel at their occupation, right? So I think that not only the schooling system is important, but even the parents' instruction, right? Reaffirming a lot of the different ideas and skill sets from a home perspective. Like the parents should be equipped to do that rather than just send the kid to school and expect the school to do all of their learning and teaching, because you'll fill up that point. And
very important. You're making a very important point right there. And me being a parent who had done this and raised children and worked within the school system, yes, the best students tend to have very engaged parents. And you've got to be engaged. And that's what the whole PTA and all that was really, really all about. And really, having conferences and getting parents really involved with their students. Unfortunately, we do have a lot of single mothers out there now, with kids and going to school, and they a lot of them are not involved like that. Now, one of the things a lot of them are not. Now, I'm not gonna say all, because I can say with the program that I'm working with and some of the other stuff that I've seen going on, you do have some of these mothers who are doing that and are getting kids into these tutorial programs and extra curricular activities with respect to education. That's giving their kids a definitive leg up. But on the whole, enterprise-wide, we've definitely seen a decrease in that, and that's definitely a familial thing, so a family thing. So, yeah, you're very right about that, and that is critical. That's a critical piece that we're going to have to address as a community, because that is a very important part of a child's education. Very important.
Hey, let's go do Super Triz, and then we'll go to Paul. Super Triz?
Oh, I was on mute. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I don't know if it was Paul Bryant that was talking about the USC children and the parents that were making those sacrifices, but I think that's a key component, because if you look at any entity or family that has a notable amount of wealth, there's somebody within that particular lineage that made a sacrifice, or maybe even a string of individuals who made sacrifices. Sacrifices primarily being to forego their enjoyment of the fruits of their labor. So like these parents, that are immigrants that come here, and you see them in the community, owning stores and gas stations and things of that nature, not understanding that behind the scenes there's a lot of work that's involved with that business. They're working long hours. They're putting in a lot of effort and work into sustaining that business, especially when the business starts up. And so that sacrifice that they're making, and they're actually transferring the benefit from that sacrifice to their children by being able to send their children to these expensive schools and exclusive schools. And so from a cultural standpoint, a lot of us we want to have conspicuous consumption, and we want validation from people based on look at the car that I'm in, look at the clothes that I'm wearing, I'm a successful person, and not understanding that some of these ostentatious displays don't necessarily equate to success. It just basically a testament to how you want to spend your money, and instead of validating yourself by having a testimony about your child being successful at whatever school, or maybe some type of business endeavor as an entrepreneur, and all this based on the fact that you laid the foundation, did some type of sacrifice, whether you sent them to some type of trade school or formal education or some type of training program, apprenticeship, something that you did to position your children so that way they're not starting from ground zero. Like you can't keep starting from ground zero. Like when you guys talk about the 2053, this is why it's so important to not have your children starting from ground zero. Like if they're starting, like, so if you went through the pathway, like you graduated from high school, you got a job, then you maybe you went to community college, went to school part-time, and then then you have a child, and then your child does the exact same thing you did. They graduate from high school, they living at home, they they work a little job, they get a little rims for their car, they finally have enough money to move out an apartment. They're enjoying life a little bit, but then at some point they go back to school, and and they're going to school part-time, and then so on and so forth. You keep repeating that cycle. You really haven't made any progress. Like, it's got to be a point where, you know what, let me position my children so that way they're not doing the exact same thing that I'm doing. Like, if at the very least, hopefully I can hand down some type of real estate, some type of asset to them, so they have a foundation of wealth, but also so that way they're not spinning their wheels for the first 4 to 8 years of adulthood. Let's learn a skill now, something that, or something that could have some type of significance, so that way I can begin applying it as soon as possible, as opposed to not being really productive until I'm 30 years old. Because if you're making $20 an hour, that's not really productive. And I think that's the big issue. People are not taking advantage of their most productive years. Like, your most productive years are going to be between the ages, I would say, of maybe 20 to maybe 55 years old. Those are your most productive years. So if the first 10 years of your productive years, you're not actually being productive, then you've wasted it. And if you have a timeline of 2053, you have no time to waste.
Well, the reality is your biggest money-making years, statistically, are between the ages of 40 and 65. Those are your biggest money-making years.
Well, if you want to make money between the ages of 40 and 55 or 65, you had better position yourself when you're 20 years old, 25 years old. Like, you don't want to be, 30 years old and then trying to get the act together, because that's going to shift your timeline back even further. You're not going to be productive until the end of that 40 to 55 year, 40 to 65 year cycle.
Well, you have to factor in ageism, because jobs are starting to discriminate now against certain ages now. So
they sure do.
Yeah. I mean, that's pretty much been the case for quite a while.
Hey, I want to go to Paul, Bryant, and then Gabe.
Yeah.
Hold on a second, Mike.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I just want to say very quickly that I think it's just, people, we really should put a lot more emphasis on getting a skill set. Whatever. I think that's the really most important thing that we really should be putting a lot of emphasis on, is getting that skill set together. And I think you can learn a skill at a young age or even at an older age, but it's skill sets you have to put together. I think more so than anything else in this morning about strictly age, and I think I don't want us to lose sight of that as well.
All right, Paul Bryant.
Yeah, I wanted to add about passing down a culture and a legacy of focus on education. So, in my case, when I was growing up, I was in after school programs, and I was in extracurricular programs. So on Saturday mornings, and I hated it because I was missing Saturday morning cartoons, but I was somewhere dissecting frogs or learning studio media production or studying science.
You said Saturday morning cartoons?
Yeah, bro, I'm 47. I grew up with Saturday morning cartoons, bro.
So there was, at one point, before there was a Paul, there was a Pookie?
There was never a Pookie. Paulie ain't never. Paulie has never been anybody's Pookie. But point is, so when I got older, okay, that legacy and that culture of education, all right, that came from my mom and my aunts and my uncles. So when my daughter came along, it was the same exact thing for her. So she was in after school programs. I had her in summer education programs. She learned to speak Spanish and French. She was in the chess class. She was in the debate team. She was in the Lego robotics team. Okay, she was in had her in scientific programs at St. John's University. So I was a very involved parent. Okay. So that is a culture and a legacy that was passed down from me and now down to her. And especially when my daughter, when I sent her to Manhattan Prep School that she went to, because with those schools, your class is your grade. So myself and one other Black parent, the only other parent I saw on a regular basis. So there were maybe 6 or 7 of them in her class of 30, which represented her grade, and they moved from year to year to year. My point is, as one of the brothers here in the chat said, you have to be a very involved parent. School is not a babysitter. The boob tube is not a babysitter. You have to approach this as it's a structure, and you are building and creating a reality and structuring a foundation, and piece by piece creating this structure that will be your child's success for the future when your child becomes an adult. Because then you don't want your child to be one of these adults who's now 25 or 30, and they're trying to find themselves, or they're asking people, would you like fries with that or supersized? You don't want that. Okay. And so regardless of what any specific culture is or is not, I feel it is extremely incumbent upon you as a person, as an individual, as a parent. Your focus has to be education, to then pass that down to your child, and you have to be involved. Make the sacrifice, make the time. One thing in life, we can always make time for the things we want to make time for. So what better to make time for than for your son or daughter?
Let's go to Gabe. He has his hand up.
Indeed, yeah. Yeah, kind of even that. It's so interesting because I think about how I grew up compared to how children are growing up today, and even the differences as it concerns preparing children for the work environment or just to be productive members of society, right? It's like as I was I'm kind of trying to think through and step through what a parent would need to do today in order to prepare their kid to be successful, right? Or even be competitive in this market, right? Because I think that there are things that are different, right? When I was growing up, there wasn't a social media thing, right? In the 90s. So, but these days, a lot of individuals who are successful in their particular fields, they have some type of social media presence with a type of following where they're updating individuals about what they're doing in their particular field of study or their field of work. So they have YouTube channels, they have Twitters, they have Instagrams, they have Twitches, right? There was a young man playing video games was able to he was able to win $1 million from playing Fortnite. So that's one of those differences, right? So not only educating them in the traditional educational settings like math, science, arithmetic, English, and these things, but also giving them skills in being successful in a digital environment, right? Like with the social media, and also like having a GitHub, right? They might do some little practice, little coding challenges, documenting those things and being able to present them from a digital perspective. Even kids having a LinkedIn account, I don't think that's at all far-fetched from a young person being competitive in this type of market. So I think that there are some strong differences between when I grew up in the 90s and even when children are growing up now, that parents should be able to equip their children with in order for them to be successful, not only successful, but speaking of 2020, 2030 or 2053, but competitive during those particular times. Because we don't want to just get into those fields. We don't want to just get into those areas that are emerging. But I think that we need to be competitive and being able to have a strong imprint in that particular environment. So.
Yeah, I think, and that's a good point that you bring up, because I think what's happening here is we're utilizing the technology, but we're not actually, and we're consuming it, but we're not actually driving it.
Yes.
And that's part of the major issue for a lot of ADOS is that they just leverage the technology for their own satisfaction, but not actually innovating the technology for for the advancement and so they don't have, they're not really contributors to the major life cycle of development,
Right.
and that becomes a big issue for a lot of African Americans. And plus, they're not in the startup sector either. I mean, there's Black startups, and there's actually Afrotech happening in the next few weeks.
Right. I heard it. Yep.
Yep, that's going to be happening. So you're going to see a lot of Black startups coming out of that. But my main overarching point is that 2053 is too long of a way for a lot of these people. I mean, I used it initially when looking at slavery coming out of 1865, Black Wall Street starting to prop up by the 1890s. That was an actual, I thought at the time, was a legitimate projection of development. Right? It was a nice scale to go from dirt roads up until modernization of the industrial revolution at the time.
Yeah.
And I still think it would be viable, but based on the conversations that's been had in social media and just talking to people in person, guys, grown men still riding dirt bikes in the streets in some of these urban environments. You have to ask yourself, like, what have you done all day?
Yep.
What have you done all day? Like, ride around on a dirt bike, if that was your only means of transportation, that would be fine. But if you're just popping wheelies up and down the street, I have to wonder, stunting, and I have to wonder what woman in their right mind is choosing you to build a family with.
Wow.
Yeah, but Mike, that's never going to change, bro. Those people are never going to change.
The Rough Riders?
Correct. And yeah, shots, you from Boston, but listen, that's never going to change. The women who choose to lay down with these men, they're never going to change. And then that is the self-perpetuating cycle that I keep talking about. You can't worry about those people. You can't, because they're never going to change. So now the thing is, people don't like when I say this, that's a large portion of Black America. Whether they work or even people who have jobs, there are people who are functional at it. They're basically like functional addicts. They may work, they have jobs, but their mentality is so broken. They will never change.
Let's go to Nagone 11, then we'll go to Art Neutral. Nagone, your hand is up.
Yeah. I was just saying, one of the key things that we have to really look at. We talk about 2053 because 2053 is here. I see Black educators or people who are in education and were very serious, because I believe the nexus to really our success and moving forward is education. I think it's all about that. We are really, we're going to have to really take a very serious look at we have the public school system that is failing us now in many areas, even though we started it back in the later 19th century. We're gonna have to start getting back to developing our own schools again. We're really gonna have to really develop our own schools and really teach our children. We're gonna have to take a total hand in that. We're gonna have to take that over. I know a lot of, we're seeing a lot of parents starting to teach once again, bring their kids home and homeschool, but we're going to have to start developing our own institutions. We're not going to be able to get away from that. Institution building, we're not going to be able to get away from that if we're going to survive that. And that's something that people don't want to, that's something that a lot of some of the ADOS people don't want to come to grips with. And that's why you have people sitting here talking about, take a 23-year-old kid or a 22-year-old kid or whatever, and have them, raising children with other, I mean, it's just a lot of craziness, and it's okay and it's all right. No, we really have to, in order to get out of some of that mindset and get out of some of that, we're going to have to develop a stronger educational system to really combat some of this. We have to understand, what it is to win and what it is to really educate ourselves. It's very important. Mike, go ahead. You were going to say, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, from an institutional standpoint, the educated Pookie is supposed to be the savior of the community. So he's supposed to be able to build that. But let's go to Art Neutral. He got his hand up.
You haven't seen any of that.
Yeah, because my can y'all hear me?
We can hear you fine.
Okay, sorry about that. Trying to hit that mute button. Yeah, my mom, before she passed, she used to be an educator as well. She taught business. First, she taught typing, then computers and business education, and she pretty much reached out to a lot of the young in her city. And one of the things that she really been stressing is that getting a degree is not enough, or even going to college is not enough. You need to your students need to learn the trade while they're in high school. You need to learn how to have a side business while they're in high school. They have a nice program teaching teenagers how to do appraisals and other kind of certificated things. The thing that we need to do is really step up our game, because having a job at Walmart or something and then going to college is just not enough. You got to really step it up to where whatever profession that or major that you're pursuing in the colleges, you better you better just go straight to trying to own a business on top of that. Because right now, like I'm just hearing everybody talking, it just really sounds like you just need to write your own ticket instead of waiting for somebody to hire you. It's just that
Gig
simple.
economy. Gig economy, that's what they call it. And that's what, the World Economic Forum a few weeks ago was talking about, that's the new industry for the Zennial. Going forward, it will be the gig economy. You will have to write your own ticket, pack your own lunch. There will be no entry level jobs for you for all intents and purposes. You won't be able to, and you'll still have internships from major universities because they always have that relationship. But if you think that just getting your GED or just having a high school diploma and then I'm gonna go work at Best Buy or something like that, you may be relegated to a valet parking job.
Yep.
If you think you're gonna go get a job, because a lot of those jobs are not going to, those vertical markets are not going to be there. We're seeing this right now with McDonald's and the automated using artificial intelligence on their drive-throughs. We see various Domino's Pizza heavily invested into the tech. So they've they partner with Ford on pizza deliveries, a special vehicle, Ford Fusion with autonomous capabilities to deliver pizza from house to house. We see, I think, another company invested into delivering food via or Uber Eats using drones to deliver food. This is, and this is just early, in the development of the technology. You factor in 2030, this stuff is going to be perfected. They'll figure it out. I work in IT, in the cybersecurity side as well as the development side of DevOps and stuff like that. So I've seen how long it takes for them to get something right. If they don't get it right on Monday, it'll be right by Friday. So
yeah,
they'll figure it out.
Yeah,
we're the gig economy now. We're the gig economy now.
Well, yeah.
This is only going to increase. We're in the gig economy now.
Yeah, if you go to like onlyfans.com / your favorite YouTuber, they're on there.
And you got to remember too, and I keep really stressing out because I speak a little frank to my students.
OnlyFans.
People are looking.
Premium Snapchat.
They don't know what that is.
they're looking at our children and just know for sure that they're going to be their boss. You got to really cut that fantasy and make our children their boss. They got the same opportunities as our children do. I mean, there's a lot of things, and I'm not trying to knock on sports, because sports help you to become a team player in the industry. That's cool, but that shouldn't be every year of their life. You got to do it like the Shaolin Temple. You got to learn the dragon. You got to learn the tiger. You got to learn all these different things before they go out in the world. It's just that simple, man. All that cavalier and stuff, and I get them there when I feel like it. You ain't got time for that now. It's the crunch time is here.
Johnny Blaze got his hand up. What's going on?
Sorry about that.
Hey, what's going on, guys? No, I'm just gonna say, while you guys were here talking earlier, my daughter is in college. We were just going through her degree. I had her pull up like 4 or 5 jobs and say, okay, you're a freshman in college. Let's look at some actual jobs that you can do with your degree. And as we're going through them, she's like, well, I can't do that. Can't. And I said, well, we might look at either redoing your degree here or, figuring something else out. Because, I mean, just based upon the conversation that we're having, I'm still trying to plan out her future here, help her plan her future out. But I'm really trying to get her more involved to take on that active role. Because at some point, I'm not going to be around. And that's
right.
that's my true focus, is to set her up for success once I'm gone. And I think Art Nostro hit it kind of on the head. I had two students, one black, one white, both males, same age, but one came in, did his thing. Now he's out making $25 an hour, and the other one's trying to find him another college program because he was too busy chasing girls and falling asleep in class. So.
Yeah, usually when you sleep a lot, it means you got somebody pregnant. So
yeah, my student, he was so tired because he said there was this term he used. I'd never heard it before. He says he was he wanted to hang out with his buddies and go to a kickback.
You never heard of kickbacks?
Never heard of kickbacks.
Oh, what? Okay.
I'm 46. I'm 46.
No, it's all good. A lot.
I had no. So I guess I'm out of touch. I don't know what a kickback is.
No, it's all good. Yeah, it's well, at least from Detroit, it's a general statement. It's just like it's like a hangout spot, or y'all about to like go hang out or something.
Yeah.
Pretty much. Yeah.
I thought you was talking about a Draco, because a Draco supposedly kickback, but
oh yeah.
Nobody speaks English anymore.
No, it's English.
Let's go to Paul Bryan. He has his hand up.
Yeah, there was something that kind of gets short shrift. Mike V to his credit brings it up. Skilled trades, all right. The union construction trades, skilled trades, whether you are a iron worker, a welder, a carpenter, a pipe fitter, an electrician. I'll say it like this: New York City, as a union construction worker, right, your base annual pay is anywhere from $108 to $120 a year. The crane operators make $250,000 every year. So that is something viable for those individuals who may not necessarily be the best in school, may not necessarily be technologically inclined. You can do very well and set up yourself and any offspring that you may have. Specifically welding. Once I left Wall Street as a certified, I got into being a union iron worker, and as a certified welder, I worked over in Europe and in Africa and even in Asia. So made a tremendous amount of money in addition to my stint up at the North Pole. Also spent 2 years living and working on Africa, being there, seen it. So my point is, there are skills that will be heavily in demand, over the next 20 to 50 years, if you're willing to look for them. I'm of the belief it should be STEM and emerging technology. The reality is everybody will not go into it. So it should behoove you to look for skills that will be in demand for the coming future. So there are some of those skills out there, and they are in the construction trades, in the skilled trades.
And those are one of the professions in the construction industry that's going to survive the long term. They said that will be around. You may have robots that might be able to do certain kind of things, but going up high end scaffolding, dealing with high rise construction, you're going to need people. You're going to need people to do it. Machines are not going to be able to do it that easy. So those are definitely going to be jobs that are going to be around for the foreseeable future. Great point. And a lot of money. And it's going to even become more technical. So you're going to need some education and training with that as well.
people thought I was crazy when I walked away from Wall Street, but I said, listen, I loved it and I did it, but sitting behind a desk all day just wasn't for me. So apprenticeship was 3 years. So the third year was becoming a certified welder. And that has been and will continue to be one of the most sought after skills on the planet. I'm not overselling it. I'm not overstating it. Okay, so if I were 20 years younger, I would have gone into underwater welding rather than building bridges, tunnels, and high rises in New York City, and could have been working 6 months out of the year and making $300,000 a year to literally work 6 months out of the year.
Huge money there.
Writing your own ticket. Now, listen, I'm not complaining because I managed to leverage my skills from Wall Street into a business. So I'm good. I'm fine. That's why I'm able to do the things that I currently do. My point is, even if you just want to take the strict down the road path, there are definitely skill trades, the construction trades, even with all the automation. Robots are not going to be building high rises, bridges, and tunnels.
That's what we said. They're not going to be doing it. They're not. They will not be doing that. I'm a union glacier, so our backgrounds are similar. I like the way we talk. I was in the glaciers union. I definitely got in that, putting up glass and doing caulking and high rise caulking. Did all that. So yeah, we're very similar in that regard. Very similar. But great stuff. You're dead on it. And dead on it.
And you also have awesome healthcare. So on that note, I just want to tell everybody on the panel, thank you for having me. It's been great. Mike V, we will talk, my brother, because I'll be going back to Germany coming weekend after Comic-Con. I'll be over there for 6 months, so you probably won't be hearing from me too much. So I'll check in, as I can.
Raptor, did you have something you want to add?
Yeah, Paul already said what I was going to say. I was going to tell Paul if he was 20 years younger, he could do all the underwater welding. I know some guys that used to work with me in the aviation industry. They learn welding, they quit, right? Because our company, when you get hired, they will teach you how to do welding. They quit, went into underwater welding, work 30 to 60 days per year. 30 to 60 days per year, depending on where the work is. And some of these guys have businesses on the side. They're on call. Somebody call them, they go to Saudi Arabia or Philippines or somewhere, do the job within a week, 2 weeks, back home. But a lot of black people don't put themselves in a position to know, to learn about these things. You know what I'm saying? Let me give an example. One day I'm in the cockpit, and this little kid's getting off the airplane, and he walks up to the cockpit door, and said, "Mommy, look at that." I said, "Come on in, man. Sit down." Mama, "Come on, boy. I don't have time for that foolishness." I have never heard Caucasian parents tell one of their children that foolishness. The children will come in the cockpit and sit down and talk right beside me, talk to me. "What is that? What is that? What do you do with that?" And the parents are there, standing by the door, laughing and chatting. I mean, that day I was so pissed off. I almost said something to that woman. If I know I wouldn't get fired, I would have said something. So we gotta prepare our children. Our children might want to play, but like Paul was saying, they sent him off. No cartoons, babe. You're going to this. That's what you gotta do. You gotta. Yes, you might say I give you an hour to watch cartoons, but for the rest of the time, you got to be in a book, or you got to be when you at 11 years old. You got to decide. We got to look at you as a parent. I'm looking at you and I'm saying, oh, this guy has got a mind to be a doctor, or he's sharp. He can debate a lot, so he could be a lawyer, or you got to look at your children, evaluate them.
All right. So with that being said, we'll close out for tonight, man. Please hit the like button if you're not already done so. Share the video if possible, and hit that notification bell so you get all the updates from the Black Brain Trust. Make sure y'all follow SuperTriz at youtube.com/SuperTriz. Also follow Art Newstall at youtube.com/Art Newstall.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yeah. So anyhow, anything with education, I'm here. So, cause that's what I've been doing for years. And I really hope that people really get it so they can bring their children to greatness, because we're losing a lot of brilliant minds out there over some stuff that's unnecessary. So I appreciate all the brothers on the panel, yourself, everybody here in the chat, and I'll be back for if I'm available or
Yeah,
I'm invited. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no doubt. I used to be a part of YGM, which was Young Graffiti Masters. So I used to do art myself when I was younger.
Okay.
Yep. So
Appreciate it.
peace and shalom.